Meeting recording has started.
Chair Pilpel, would you like me to introduce the meeting or do you want to?
Let me just do a brief bit and then you can carry on from there. So good afternoon to all who are present online, who I cannot see because we don't have a screen that allows that right now. As you'll hear in a moment, I'm David Pilpel. I was asked to chair this meeting in the absence of our regular chair, Chris Hyland. This is a rescheduled meeting of the Education, Outreach, and Training Committee of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force, City and County of San Francisco. Today is Tuesday, September 26th, 2023. Madam Clerk, if you can proceed.
This meeting is accessed by remote access or in-person participation. The Sunshine Ordinance Task Force and its committees convene hybrid meetings that allow in-person attendance, in-person public comment, remote access for petitioners and respondents, and remote public comment via teleconference. The WebEx remote link login is TINYURL/T8KNUJ3D. The password is sunshine. The telephone call-in number is 415-655-0001. The meeting ID is 2590-219-3313 #. Press *3 to enter the speaker line. Shall we begin with item number 1?
Sure.
Item number one, call to order, roll call, and agenda changes. Roll call. Member Pilpel.
Present.
Member Pilpel present. Member Hill.
Present.
Member Hill present. Chair Hyland not present. Shall we discuss agenda changes?
Yes. So as to agenda changes, I would like to do things a little differently in my small capacity chairing today's meeting. I would like to put items 2 and 3 to the end of the agenda and start out with complaints. I believe that that is more respectful of people's time who have filed complaints and respondents who are responding. So we'll open it up for public comment to see if that works for folks. And I would and I, at some point, very shortly, I would love to know who is present online for complainants and respondents, so that we can proceed in part based on who's here. And welcome. We're just starting the meeting. Haven't done anything. There was one other thing. Okay. And then as to items 7 and 8, and I'm interested in hearing from Mr. Sullivan if he is present online. My understanding is that items 7 and 8, complaints filed by Mark Sullivan against Bruce Wolf, were put on the agenda. I was led to believe last week that they were not going to be on the agenda and that there was somehow insufficient notice given. And so I am informed that we will not be hearing items 7 and 8 today, but that they will be rescheduled perhaps at another committee or at the full task force, but they will be scheduled elsewhere at another time. But I did want to offer Mr. Sullivan, and for that matter, anyone else who has comments related to the scheduling of items 7 and 8 under this period of public comment relative to item 1. Member Hill, any thoughts? Does that all kind of work for you?
That sounds great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. And Cheryl, does that fairly summarize?
Yes, that's fine with me.
Okay, sounds good. So why don't we open for public comment on the question of moving items 2 and 3 to follow item 8 somewhere. Not sure if it'll be 4 after 9 and 10. Stay tuned if that works for folks. And thoughts from Mr. Sullivan or others on not hearing items 7 and 8 tonight. Vic,
Okay,
if we could
if
open for public
anybody
comment.
would like to make public comment on this motion to change the order of today's agenda items. Please approach the podium. And if you're online with us, you can raise your hand by either pressing *3 on the phone or using the application to raise your hand. I don't see anybody in the room. We do have a couple of people with their hands raised.
Let's do that.
Caller. Carol, I defer to you.
Should I go? Okay. I guess we aren't going to hear my complaints. I guess we'll be rescheduled. I'll just let you know that I'm here.
Is this Mr. Sullivan?
Yes. Sullivan.
Okay. Great. Okay. So again, my understanding is that they will be heard, but not at some point in the future, but not tonight.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Other speakers?
Okay. Give me one moment.
My name is Joe Dworetsky. I'm the petitioner in 23060, and I have no objection to the change in sequence.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Dworetsky. We will, as a result of all of this, we will be getting to you sooner rather than later. So stay tuned. Thank you very much. Others?
I do not see any additional hands raised at this time.
Okay. Seeing no further public comment on item 1 is closed. Can we perhaps without a motion just move the agenda in the way that I discussed and agree that we are not hearing items 7 and 8 tonight?
Yeah, I believe as long as there are no objections, then we should be good to go.
Okay.
No objections here.
Victor, do you see a need for a motion, or can we just do that as the prerogative of the chair without objection?
It's really up to your organization. And it's handled differently at different bodies. This is not normal for the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force, but it's up to you, for you to make your own decisions on that. We can just say, make the motion and approve without objection.
For a motion or not a motion?
I guess why don't I go ahead and entertain the motion just so we can move forward. I'll make a motion, I'll make the motion to I guess if we are removing items 7 and 8 from this agenda to be heard at a later hearing, and also moving items 2 and 3 down below item 6.
Okay. And I will so second. So that's a motion to remove items 7 and 8 tonight and to hear items 2 and 3 sometime after 6, maybe before 9 and 10, maybe after. Stay tuned. Okay.
That's good.
Good. Victor, do you recommend that we reopen public comment on the specific motion, or?
I don't believe you need to. You already took.
Okay, and I think there was.
Itself, even
I
though
think
it
there was.
Moved.
And I didn't hear any objection. Okay, so Cheryl, why don't we take a quick roll call on that?
Member Hill?
Aye.
Member Hill, aye. Chair Pilpel?
Aye.
Chair Pilpel. Moved by Member Hill, seconded by Chair Pilpel to remove items 7 and 8 from the agenda and move items 2 and 3 after item 6.
Great. Okay, so moving right along, why don't we read item 4, and then let me make a couple of quick comments, and then we'll get into the substance of item 4. Carol?
Are we going to do general public comment or do that at the end?
We just moved 2 and 3
Okay.
to the end, so we're going to go straight into item 4.
Item number 4, file number 23063, complaint filed by Patrick Monette Shaw against the Department of Public Health for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 6721, by failing to provide public records in a timely and or complete manner.
Okay. So I have served on the task force a number of times for a number of years, but not recently. And I have not chaired a committee in a long time. So I may well stumble and screw up. And if so, we'll fix it. In terms of disclosures and recusals, I want to just state up front, the complainant, Mr. Monette Shaw, has expressed negative views about me in the past. I believe that he is not exactly a fan. Nevertheless, he has the right to file complaints and has done so here, may do so in the future, and I bear no bias against him as relates to this or any future complaint. If he carries his burden of an appropriate showing, then we will recommend finding a violation, or I will vote for that. And if he doesn't, then so be it. And same thing with DPH and others here. So I just wanted to be clear that I'm looking at all of these fresh, and there's that. We may well have some questions for both the complainant and respondent when we get to that point in the proceedings. We have the documents before us, and I would ask complainant and respondent here and in the other cases tonight where they have items in the record for us that supports a position, if they can point us to that page number or a more specific reference, that would help. I'm looking where possible for evidence in the record, and if it's useful to expand on that, that's great too, but a lot of this is kind of evidence-based. So there we go. That was my brief intro. Unless there's anything further, do we have Mr. Monette Shaw with us?
This is Victor Young. If you are a party to this matter and in the room, you can approach the podium at this time. If you're joining us online, if you don't mind, if you can raise your hand so I can identify you, it would be appreciated. If you're on the telephone, that would be *3. Otherwise, use the application to raise your hand. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody. I'm going to go ahead and unmute a couple of lines where I can't quite tell who they are and see if there's just a technical issue.
Let's do that.
Hello, caller. I've just unmuted you. I was wondering which item you're here for.
Sullivan, I'm still on the line.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello, caller. I've just unmuted you. If you don't mind identifying what item you're here for tonight, it would be appreciated.
Yes, my name is Ramona Mayon, and I'm here for the matter with Jared Dowinski and the Department of Homelessness.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Hello, caller. I've just unmuted you. I was wondering if you identify which item you're here for today. Okay, I'm not getting a response on that. I believe Mr. Sullivan has just raised his hand for some reason. I'm just going to go ahead and unmute him quickly. Mr. Sullivan, I see that you raised your hand.
I didn't raise my hand, or at least I didn't want to.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and lower it for you then. Okay. One more. Hello, caller. I've just unmuted you. I was wondering if you can identify which item you're here for today.
My name is Richard. I'm here for the HE Safe.
Thank you very much. Okay, I do not have anybody else. Oh, I have Mr. Hamilton who just raised his hand. Hi, Mr. Hamilton. Are you a party to this item?
Yes, I'm here representing HSH for the 23060 item.
Okay, thank you very much. I will go ahead and leave you unmuted.
Okay.
And Victor, does that
I
exhaust?
see nobody else.
That's what we got. Okay. And there was no one present for DPH. Oh, I'm sorry. Could you approach and just tell us who you are? I apologize. Hold on.
Okay.
Round two. There you go.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Victor Lim, Assistant Director of Public Affairs of DPH and also the Custodian Records.
Got it. I'm sorry I didn't recognize you. It's been a while.
It's been a while. It's good to see you, sir.
Nice to see you. Okay, so it looks like we have Victor Lim from DPH, but we don't have Mr. Monet Shaw right now. How about this? Could we, what do they call it in Sacramento? Could we pass and retain and maybe wait for a bit to give Mr. Monet Shaw a chance because he might have anticipated that it may be a little later. We'll see if he appears and maybe take the HSH case.
Yeah.
Does that work for?
Because, yeah.
Yep.
And then, yeah.
Good. Okay.
Got it. Or if it's a long time, I'll switch to remote, but I'll be here for a little bit.
Let's hang out for a bit and see
No
how we
problem.
do with item 5. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right, Victor. So I think what we want to do is hold on item 4, ask Cheryl to read item 5, and take the Joe Dworetsky, I want to pronounce it correctly, Dworetsky against HSH complaint because I believe we have both parties. Does that work? Victor, number 1.
At your discretion, you can go ahead and call the next item.
Let's do that. So Cheryl, let's call item 5. And thank you, Mr. Lim.
Item number 5, file number 23060, complaint filed by Joe Dworetsky against the Department of Homelessness and Supportive Housing for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 6721 by failing to respond to a request for public records in a timely and/or complete manner.
Okay. So on this one, I won't repeat all of what I just said. I do remember Jeff Hamilton from 1,000 years ago. Nice to, although you're not that old and neither am I. Nice to hear from you again in this current capacity. But again, I have an open mind. There's very little going on between the ears. It's a very open mind. I think on this one, this was filed by an individual against HSH, and we'll refer to the Department of Homelessness and Supportive Housing as HSH, so everyone knows. This was related to a records request. Jeff Hamilton is representing HSH, and we've got documents here from both complainant and respondent. So it appears to me on its face that we have jurisdiction. And Cheryl or Victor, can we take a motion first on finding jurisdiction 5A and then proceed to hear from the complainant and respondent?
If you don't mind, if we just wait until the end and make one motion so we don't have to take multiple votes.
Okay. Good suggestion. I like that. Okay. That being the case, Mr. Dworetsky and Mr. Hamilton, are you ready to go? And where do I have the complaint procedures?
This is Joe Dworetsky. I'm ready to proceed.
Got it. So why don't we hear from Mr. Dworetsky for 5 minutes on your facts and evidence?
Thank you very much. I'm a reporter at Bay City News. That's a wire service and cover the Bay Area. We have about 100 news and media organizations that take our feed. I also write for Local News Matters, which is a related organization. It's a nonprofit, no advertising, free local news website. In organizing these materials, I prepared a chronology, which members of the committee could find at page 174 of the package. But let me just go through the major points. The Department of Homelessness and Supportive Services has one of the most newsworthy and significant functions in the city. Its fiscal 24 budget was $713 million, an increase of $45 million from fiscal year 23. In the last year, I've written almost 30 articles about HSH. Many of them have been about how the department spends and misspends the money to which it's been entrusted. Many of my stories have run on the Local News Matter website and also by our wire service partners, including San Francisco Standard, CBS News, NBC News, SF Gate, Newsbreak, and the Post Group. The series that I've been writing was selected as a national finalist for a Lion Award for Outstanding Local News Coverage. Almost all of my stories have used material from public records requests from the department. Because of its importance, I plan to write about HSH's budget requests and the hearings that were scheduled on its budget before the Board of Supervisors. Those hearings were scheduled for June 15th and June 22nd at the Board of Supervisors, and there was a related hearing at the Port of San Francisco on June 13th. I filed records requests on May 13th. That was more than a month before those hearings. You can find my records requests in the package at pages 172 and 173. They were carefully drawn records requests, and I sharply limited the period for which I requested records to that after April 1, 2023. So again, I filed May 13th and looked for records in the period from April 1st to May 13th, about a 45-day period. My records requests were acknowledged on May 16th. No notice was given by HSH pursuant to 6721B that they needed additional time to respond. The 10-day response was due on May 25th, and on that day, the department made a production of a handful of documents. The department then said it was continuing to look and would produce more on a rolling basis. I pressed the department for more documents, and it made an additional production on June 1, but it again invoked the rolling production section of the statute and said it would make future production if, as, and when it had more documents. I objected to that practice, and I included in the materials, you'll see a lengthy statement I made of the reasons that using the rolling production provision of the statute as an unbounded, unlimited exemption from disclosure or postponement of disclosure was inappropriate. But they continued to produce on their own schedule. It was July 14th and July 17th, more than 2 months after my requests, before they produced the last documents. By the time the hearings that I was covering had come and gone, I'd written my stories about them. The documents they produced after the hearing included some very important information that I could not include in my stories because I didn't know it. This is not an isolated event. The department has been doing this all year. I filed an appeal with the supervisor of records. When the supervisor of records didn't respond in the time frame that it is given in the ordinance, I filed this appeal to the task force. The Sunshine Ordinance strongly favors disclosure, and almost every aspect of the ordinance resolved doubts in favor of the requester. The burden is clearly on the department to justify any withholding. The department here, in their response, does not contest that my requests were proper, that the requested documents were indeed public records, that the task force has jurisdiction, that they made no timely claim of exemption, and they made no timely request for an additional 10 days. So what is the department offered to justify its withholding? Well, it said it had to confer with and other departments and redact documents.
Mr. Dworetzky?
Yes.
Yeah, can I ask you to just conclude with another sentence or two and wrap up, and you'll have another opportunity in a bit, and we'll have some questions for you.
Yes, thank you. I just conclude by saying that the practice that has been adopted here runs the risk of totally eviscerating the Sunshine Ordinance, because any department at any time can simply produce a couple of records timely and hold the valuable records until after the story is written, the hearing held, or where they're no longer useful. Thank you.
Got it. Thank you very much. Next, we shall hear from Jeff Hamilton.
Good afternoon, everybody. Could you confirm I have?
Just a moment, sir.
Yes.
Just a moment.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what was your name again, sir?
Jeff Hamilton.
Oh, Jeff.
Okay, are you ready to go?
I am. Could you confirm that I have 5 minutes? Is that correct?
Yep. We're
Okay.
about to start the timer.
Nice to see you, Chair Pilpel. I was going to mention something about having known you back then, and I didn't think you would remember. So
the problem is I remember all of it. But let's keep going.
I'm stunned. Anyway, my name is Jeff Hamilton. I'm the custodian of records for the Department of Homelessness and Supportive Housing. I will be representing the department today. I'd like to start by giving you an overview of our record production for Mr. Duretsky. Some of this information you already have in your packet. We received our first Sunshine request from Mr. Duretsky January 25th of this year. To date, we have received a total of 14 Sunshine requests from Mr. Duretsky. 11 are the object of this complaint. Just to update the committee, we had 2 requests open at the time that we responded to this complaint, which are in your packet. Those have now been closed. We also received 3 additional requests from Mr. Duretsky since this complaint, and those have been closed. So we currently have no open or pending requests for Mr. Duretsky. Between the first request in January, I think it was January 25th, and the last request within the scope of this complaint, HSH released 555 records to Mr. Duretsky in response to these 11 requests. These records were released in 22 separate batches, 6 in February, 5 in March, 4 in April, 3 in May, and 4 in June. This averaged about 1 release a week. Of the total requests, 3 were closed entirely within the 10-day deadline. The rest were worked on with an initial request and then on a rolling basis. I wanted to mention some important context for the committee regarding these records and our department. I think it's pretty well known that HSH has amongst the most sensitive records of any city department. We house records for thousands of clients who trust us with their personal health information and also their personal identifying information. We take the responsibility of our client confidentiality very seriously. It's important for the committee to know that all but one of Mr. Duretsky's requests are about 2 of our facilities, the Candlestick Point Vehicle Triage Center, or the VTC as it's called, and our Pier 94 Site F trailer site, both of which house communities of our clients, and one of which is subject to litigation. There is no conflict between protecting client confidentiality and our obligations to the Sunshine Ordinance. However, complying with both requires a labor-intensive and rigorous review of records. All of the 555 records released to Mr. Duretsky had to be reviewed by me, my supervisor, and in some instances needed consultation with the city attorney for possible redaction of PHI and PII and or possible privilege related to litigation or lease negotiations. While there were specific releases that could have been more timely, given the volume of Mr. Duretsky's requests, their complexity, and the sensitivity of the records requested, we have done our very best to be responsive and timely given the capacity and workload of the department. As far as media, I'm sort of running out of time soon, but as far as media facts are concerned or issues related to the media, we encourage members of the press to start these inquiries with the media relations staff. We cannot and do not mandate this. Typically, a reporter will speak to our media team and say, I'm writing a story about X. The first question our staff asks is, what is your deadline? they will usually have a list of questions, and our media relations staff also help them clarify the records they're requesting. So by the time I get the request, there's been some collaboration and vetting going on. For whatever reason, Mr. Dvoretsky does not follow this process. It is his prerogative not to. However, he does not tell us up front what he is writing about, nor does he give us his deadlines. So he is at once accusing HSH of undermining his media timelines and the newsworthiness of his requests, while simultaneously not telling us what he is writing about and what his deadlines are. So we do the best we can. We are not orchestrating any kind of media campaign against Mr. Dvoretsky. It's simply a matter of the rigorous review of the documents and the number of requests we had from him simultaneously. Keep in mind as well that at any given moment, Mr. Dvoretsky had a minimum of 3 and sometimes as many as 7 or 8 requests in production at the same time about these 2 facilities, which was incredibly time-consuming, laborious, and complex for our staff. So again, I think we've done the best we can to respond to Mr. Dvoretsky, and I'm happy to take any questions or discuss this further as needed.
Great. Thank you very much for that. And again, anticipate questions in a moment. I should have asked if there are other parties to present facts and evidence in support of the complainant. And other parties in support of respondent. Why don't I do that now? Are there other parties to offer comments in support of either the complainant or the respondent? Victor, can you see if there are any hands raised?
If you'd like to make,
there's no one in the room.
You can raise your hand if you'd like to comment at this time regarding that statement. I see no hands raised at this time.
Okay, thank you. So seeing that, the matter is with the committee for discussion and questions. Member Hill, any initial thoughts?
I guess my initial thought is that it almost sounds like that there's almost an admission that that their responses have been tardy. Although probably with with reason. So that's just my initial thought. Like it doesn't sound like anyone is denying the fact that like the requests were made and that there was some tardiness in the responses.
Okay, we'll delve a little bit into that. So, couple of thoughts and comments and questions. So first to Mr. Dvoretsky, I have a tremendous amount of respect for Bay City. I certainly remember time with Joe Stanley and Marcia and Dick, and there's certainly a lot of good history with Bay City and what I presume is the journalistic work that you're doing. Let me ask you, and then I'll go to Mr. Hamilton with a couple of questions as well. The records that you requested over the various requests, I believe HSH indicated that they believe they've satisfied all the requests at this time. Would you concur with that? And have you, in fact, received what you deem sufficient responsive records to your various inquiries? And does this really boil down to a question of timeliness, or is there something else here?
Thank you for the question.
Basically, did you get the stuff?
They've responded to all my records requests to date, and I have received the production that they've made. It's hard for me to tell if it's complete or not, but I've received what they have told me is complete, and they've closed each of my requests. But I think I do want to answer the second part of your question. Is this just about timeliness, or is there more to it? Your Honor, I'm challenging the practice that they have used in many of these requests to ignore the statutory deadlines, either the 10-day or the 20-day one, by simply saying they're going to make rolling production. When they do that, they don't tell me if there's more documents. They just say they're continuing. to work on it. They don't tell me when they're going to respond, and they don't tell me why it's taking longer. So all I get is it's a black box. I just have to wait and see if they ever send any more documents. And so I pepper them with inquiries, anything more. But that's all I can do because they've not reading the statute in the way, or the ordinance in the way that it was written. They think that because they say rolling production, the deadlines don't matter, and that isn't the law. And so it puts a reporter in a very bad position. I've got a story that I'm writing. I don't agree with what Mr. Hamilton has reported about my practice. I frequently talk to people in the legislative or in the public relations side about information, but there's the kind of reporting I do. This is detailed series reporting. And I look for things like, the cost of items. To get cost of items, you've got to get the underlying records. And I know they don't like it, but it's fair game. And I remind the committee that with a budget of over $700 million a year, they can afford to turn around my requests in the statutory timeline. We're not talking about, a tiny department that's overburdened.
Understood. Okay, I think you answered my question. Remember, Hill, did you have a follow-up?
No, I think I just wanted to get clarity because I think I heard Mr. Zworetsky mention that you didn't get the appropriate notification that they were going to be tardy in their response. Was that correct? Could you just clarify that for me?
Yes. The statute says that if a department, when it gets a public record request, thinks it's going to need more time because it's voluminous or because they need to consult with another department.
For various reasons.
I'm looking at the statute now. I just wanted to get clarification from you.
Right. And I'm just saying they're supposed to tell me then the day after the request goes in, so that I can plan. But they didn't make any of those requests or any of those statements at any time on any of my requests.
So I guess I'll ask the same question to Mr. Hamilton. Hi, Mr. Hamilton. This is Member Hill.
Hello. So I just want to be clear. You're asking me which question? There were a couple of questions on the table.
Just the first sort of statement that when the requests were made, if you needed more time, were you able to communicate that back with proper reasoning? Because it sounds like that that the complainant is saying that did not happen.
Well, the reason that we don't tell Mr. Zworetsky whether or not we have more records or how long it will take to process those records is because at the time that we're doing, processing the records, we don't know the answer to that question. So, for example, we identify that we think there's 30 staff who were involved in this project. And because of the, breadth and detailed scope of Mr. Zworetsky's request, they often included our directors, our deputy directors, our project managers, various other, contracts, budget people. So I make a list with the names of staff I've requested to provide those records. And I get them on a rolling basis. If there's some staff who have not provided records, and when I send this out, by the way, often the reply from staff will be, I have no responsive documents, but other times they do. So I don't know ahead of time how many records this request will involve. There have been many times where I've gotten requests and I thought, oh my God, this is going to be, 500 records. And it turns out, the request doesn't even belong in our department. So I do this kind of sleuthing, if you will, of this to find out, who would have them, how many, and and then you have issues like people on vacation, people have left their jobs, people are on maternity leave. So there's just various miscellaneous reasons, but really we just don't know until we actually complete the request and can check off everyone we've requested, which I do, and make sure that we've retrieved every record. And that's not something we can know ahead of time. I hope that's a helpful answer.
A bit. Let me see if I can clarify. So I've made public records requests to you before, Mr. Hamilton. as a citizen, and when you knew that you weren't going to be able to provide the response to me within a certain amount of time, you communicated that to me.
Yes.
Did you do that? Have you also done that for Mr. Zareski for each of his requests?
In most, I mean, I don't know for each one. What we do as a standard practice is our goal always is to release something within the first 10 days.
Yes, sir. Yep.
No matter what. So, we do that, and then we say, and I don't have the language right in front of me, but we say something to the effect that, we will continue to search for and identify additional records, and
Sure.
we'll provide those on a rolling basis. So, again, I know I can understand why any requester might find it frustrating to not know, well, okay, how many records is it, or how long will that take? But we really don't know. The other issue that comes up is they might have to be redacted. They might have to be reviewed by a city attorney. So what I try not to do is put us in the position over and over again of saying, we'll have the next batch to you by X date, and then we don't meet that deadline. And it also creates, multiple additional deadlines we're now supposed to track amongst, across dozens and dozens of requests that we have going on at any given moment. So yes, we do let them know. We send the first release. In that email, we tell them that we will be following up with additional releases. Mr. Zareski is correct in that we do not give people a deadline or a timeline for when the next request will be. I will point out, however, in all fairness, that as I stated in my opening statement, we averaged one release a week for Mr. Zareski across his many requests. So I think while one request may have been less timely than another, the overall pattern has been that we've been diligently working each week to make sure that we're attending to his multiple requests.
So let me jump in for a moment, and I'll defer back to Member Hill shortly. So to Mr. Hamilton, I hear what you're saying. I get that. I have a couple more questions for you in a moment, but on this particular point, and I think this is the central point here, is a couple of things. Did the department reasonably allocate sufficient resources each day or each week of your limited resources to gather and produce, with redactions as appropriate, public records in response to the specific records requests? If you, in my view, if you reasonably did so, then you're good, even if that took a while. If you did not, then that's a problem. So I think our job is to try to figure out whether, taken together, all of the actions of HSH relative to this complaint were reasonable. And I don't know enough yet. We're figuring it out, and we, hopefully in the next few minutes, we'll come to either a recommendation or not a recommendation about how the full task force should proceed here. I do agree with where I think Member Hill was going. So when you find, for lack of a better term, a tranche of records from someone in the department that you believe to be responsive, is it your current practice, or can it be your practice, to inform the requester that we have located some number of records that we believe are responsive to your inquiry, and we are assembling those, reviewing for redaction, and tying it up with a bow, and should have something for you shortly? And even if you're not stating a specific deadline, to just indicate, we found some more stuff. Is that something that you currently do? And if so, is that something that you do consistently? And if not, is that something that you could do in a way that's not, unduly burdensome? Can you talk about that?
Well, it's a great question. There have been various communications intermittently with Mr. Zareski. So generally, again, as a sort of standard practice, when we make the first release, we inform them that we're working on additional releases. And if I gather additional records for that requester, I don't normally reach out to them and say, by the way, we've got more and they're coming soon, or something to that effect. what I do is if the requester responds, we respond to that. The other thing that has happened with Mr. Duretsky, and I've done this repeatedly, is I've asked him to please prioritize his requests. I have informed him on a number of occasions.
That's fine. I'm going to come back to the
Okay.
narrowing and focusing in a second.
Well, no, I was going to say something different, but
Oh, okay. Or the prioritizing, but okay.
okay. Well, no, that's fine. I can wait on that.
Okay. So what I hear you saying is that you sometimes do, but it varies, and it's often when the requester asks what's happening.
Yes, I mean, in other words, if they respond and if they respond, well, I need to know more, and we've had these communications with Mr. Duretsky where I've said I don't know, we're working on them, or something to that effect. I mean, there's been sort of email banter about these things over the course of the last 6 months, but we don't. To answer your question, we do not, as a standard practice, update people until we have another request. We want the releases to be the communication, not kind of some narrative in between releases about the status of them.
Fair enough. And I'm not sure that I was suggesting that, just
okay.
that when you find additional records that exist, that you could inform the requester, we have these, we're going through and assembling and performing a redaction review where appropriate, et cetera, so that it's not just in the abstract we're looking, it's that we actually have stuff, and we're hoping to get it to you as soon as possible. We have stuff.
Where I've frequently done that is, especially with members of the press, and I work with many reporters, is if the next release is going to be, longer than they would like, or there's going to be some kind of sense that they're going to be, wondering why they're not getting more faster. I often reach out to reporters and say, something to the effect of, we haven't forgotten about you. We're still working on them. We hope to have something by the end of next week, et cetera. So I have frequently done that, but that's more of a kind of based on the relationship we have with each requester, particularly,
Okay.
With reporters who we work with quite often.
Okay, fair enough. I think in part what I'm suggesting is if you could do that more consistently, and if the department could do that not just with media requesters, but any public requester, if there's when we get to Mr. Lim and others, that this is a good practice for departments to do, not to write a long book about how, the whole history of the vehicle triage center and why we think we have this and we don't have that, and all of that. Just to say, we haven't forgotten. We got you some stuff last week. We found some more stuff today. We're going to get it to you soon. We're on it.
Okay, great. Yeah.
In a sense, I'm saying that the more the city can be proactive on status where status matters, the better. Right. Obviously, it's best to get people records, but sometimes record collection and dissemination takes time. And people like to know not just that their request was received, but that somebody's on it and, something is still coming. And where you have definite and concrete knowledge that you've got stuff, even better. Let me also take a second to ask about information gathering practices. I don't want to get too far into this tonight, but I did want to ask where you have, because you said that you try to figure out which staff are involved in various projects and you query them of what records they may have. Should I assume from that includes both electronic records in their email and outside email, paper records, whatever other types of records they might have? So it's a variety of forms of document, but that one of the primary things that you can do, it seems to me pretty easily, is if someone asks for records related to, the vehicle triage center, is to just construct a query across email for anything related to vehicle triage center throughout the department and see what comes up, and cross-reference that with people who you think have been involved in a project. Am I way off here?
No, I think I understand what you're asking. It all depends on the language of the request, of course. If the
Understood.
if the requester is asking for something like in the case of Mr. Doretsky, often all communications about this topic are between these agencies or et cetera, then it obviously becomes quite voluminous and quite complex to retrieve. So it really depends on the language of the request. If they're asking for policies, those are generally just documents. If they're asking for budgets or contracts, and by the way, those sorts of things are very easy to turn around because they don't really need to be reviewed. And
Right.
so it's the emails and the redaction of client information and the legal issues that are challenging.
Understood. So maybe to Mr. Dworetsky for a moment. I guess I would just encourage you in future requests, assuming you're continuing to pursue the department and this issue, which is great. The more I think you can clarify in an initial request or in a clarification or follow-up back and forth that you're particularly interested in budget and policy, perhaps contracts, that's all fair, but you're presumably not so interested in specific names of clients, and you understand that if there are documents that necessarily involve names, that will require more time to redact. And if in fact you're not really interested in things that have people's names, then it's fine for the department to exclude records that include names, so long as the summary totals of, hey, last night there were 93 people at this site, or over the last 6 months there was an average of 56, and the waiting list is blah blah blah, and the contract with XYZ Services is $500,000, and here's a copy of the contract, and the last 6 months of performance reports, or whatever the heck. I'm just presuming a little bit. Mr. Dworetsky, does that make some sense?
Well, thank you very much for that suggestion. Not to go too deeply in it, I have tried on many occasions to narrow requests at the request of Mr. Hamilton or his colleagues. But I do ask you to keep in mind that my coverage has been, has not been flattering to HSH. And it's not just, if you listen to what Mr. Hamilton said about his process, he's sending out inquiries to people in the department. Some of the people are people that I've criticized, that my writing is criticized. And if the department believes that it's just fine to collect things without regard to the ordinance requirements in terms of timing, then the whole range of players, some of whom who don't like what I've been writing, any one of them can just hold the document. It's not, Mr. Hamilton is not the author of any of these documents. He's just a collector. And the fact that he thinks it's reasonable to ask people to send things in is fine, but it doesn't respond to the purpose of the ordinance, which is to allow the press, and by the press, I mean the public, to have access to documents that maybe the department doesn't want people to see. When I ask for records about 2 items that are relevant to budget hearings a month before, and I don't get the final documents until a month after, there's been a real loss for the public process. And so I ask you to keep in mind that this is not, it's not like that these are inconsequential matters that we're all just trying to find a way to be friendly about. This is a process that's set up recognizing that the press is at times an irritant to people running a department. And the one thing that I really want to ask your members of the committee to do is, in your packets at page 202 and 203 is a questionnaire that Ms. Ledger sent out to HSH with information that is requested to be included in their responsive package. And I won't read them all here, but if you looked at the questions that were asked of HSH to prepare for this hearing and to meet their burden under the statute for withholding, these are very detailed questions of the kind that Commissioner Pilpel is asking But instead of having just somebody, respond in generalities, this requires the department to put down on paper what they actually did with my searches, who they put on the list, when did they go out. If they had done that as they were required to do, I could get into the specifics of them. I would know what they did. All we know is that Mr. Hamilton thinks that they follow a nice process and a reasonable one. And he seems to be a nice enough person, but that isn't what the Sunshine Ordinance is about. And if we make it, if we ignore what the deadlines are in the ordinance in favor of just, everybody being nice, we're going to lose that information that the public should have. Again, a $700 million budget, a $43 million budget increase in a year whenever all the other departments or most of them were cut. This is important stuff.
Okay, Mr. Dworsky, I don't mean to cut you off, except that I mean to cut you off. I get it. I'm not minimizing the concern, and certainly homelessness is a very big issue and problem in the city that is arguably solvable or insolvable and has consumed many resources, and there's lots of documentation about it, and there continues to be and should be good journalism around it. So I'm not in any disagreement. I would hope that at the same time, Mr. Hamilton and the rest of the gang at HSH are doing what they can within their resources to make records available. So let me just go to that for a brief moment. I believe Shireen is currently the executive director over there. I don't remember what Emily's current position is. Deputy director or director of something?
She's the deputy director for communications and legislative affairs.
Got it. Okay. And do you currently roll up to her through Dylan Schneider? Is that
correct?
This game?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. So that's cool. So you are the point person for public records, whether it's media or non-media,
That's
at
correct.
HSH? Okay.
That's correct.
Good.
And that's what I do pretty much full time.
And I'm sure there's plenty to do. Understood.
Yes.
And in your absence, your backup person is?
Our legislative analyst, Bryn Miller.
Okay.
As well as Dylan, who helps as well.
Okay. So it's like the two of you rolling up to Dylan, to Emily, to Shireen. Cool.
Correct.
Because one of the things that I'm hoping we can do at the task force, and this is to Cheryl, is to maintain a list of, and this is to Victor and anybody else who's listening, to maintain a list of the primary records person in each department and the backup person, and where appropriate, a supervisor or manager, so that when we need to get something, that it's not just you or whoever the point person is, but that's at least somebody else in the department, particularly large departments, that somebody else is in the loop, and it's not, oh, we can't deal with it because that person's on vacation or they're sick today or blah, blah, blah. Somebody else should have access to the database and the list and knows something about what's going on. So you're with that and you have that in place. In general, would you say, Jeff, that HSH has sufficient resources to deal with the volume of public records requests that you receive? Are there significant resource constraints at this time over there? And I'll ask this of other departments in the future.
Sure. Well, it's very interesting. I mean, as you know, any of the departments have positively zero control over the number and volume of requests that come in.
But over time, in general.
Yes, but what I was going to say is, we have these weird times where there's, nothing, and then January, February, March, April, I got something like 40 requests. So you have these sort of feast or famine kind of things where you just get an avalanche of them. And people were sort of amazed that I didn't run screaming out of the building in February and March. So it really, I wish I could be more precise in my answer. I think overall, as it evens out over the year, we do have sufficient resources, and my colleagues have jumped on, on these quickly to do a lot of redacting or to process records, and help me with that. I think, I mean, I could quantify this, but we overwhelmingly comply with deadlines. We overwhelmingly get, releases out within 10 days. We almost always, probably 99% of the time, we acknowledge receipt of the requests. We close the requests. There's my name and a phone number. There's somebody that they can talk to.
And I like that, by the way. I noticed that in the responses that it didn't just say, generic public records person at HSH, that in all cases, I think it had your name, title, and contact info. That's good.
Yeah, thank you. So, I mean, again, I don't know if I'm answering your question. I think it's a difficult, challenging process, as you know, and there's lots of technical challenges in terms of software programs and file conversions and Excel spreadsheets and PDFing things, and that's actually the part that is the most difficult. It's not the retrieving of the records; it's the processing of them. Yeah. So we do the best we can, and I think overall, on a year-by-year basis, we have a good system. It's accountable, and our staff, are responsive, and we've had a total of 2 complaints in the 2 years I've been in this job with the task force. So I hope that that's evidence, at least to some extent, that we are complying and being diligent.
Yes, although, greater than 0 is still greater than 0. So to that point, if there are things that you can look at in next year's budget, if that's appropriate, if there are things that you can think about within the department as to seasonality, and whether there are some staff, be they interns or analysts or others, that you can recruit to be available that know a little bit about redaction and review and PDFing and whatnot, where you say,
yes,
look, can I just have that person for 2 hours today? And if this is something that can be done, work at home as opposed to being in the office, whatever. If there are things, if there are ways that the department can be more nimble in responding to things when you get more of the avalanche, and release those resources when there's less, you certainly know about dealing with seasonality of things. You've been around and all of that. So that's a comment. And then just finally, if there hasn't been a communication from Shireen or some other appropriate voice in the department to communicate very clearly that not only is it a difficult job and a difficult department and all that, but that when you get requests for information, that they should be treated respectfully, regardless of how critical the person has been of the department and its actors and its services and all that. And that, in a way, you can be sort of colorblind like that. It's probably not the best word, whatever.
Yes.
Just respond to the request, because whether somebody likes what you're doing, doesn't like what you're doing, likes you as a person, doesn't like you as a person, if they've made a records request, if it's, clear enough that that's what you got to do, is find the records and make them available. And that's what we do here. And having that come from the top and say, look, that's it. You got other issues to deal with. You got contracts, you got people, you got negotiations with the port, you got MTA, you got all kinds of, for lack of a better term, fakakta stuff going on over there. But you got to make clear that that's what we do. And I think the more that can be, occasionally repeated to staff, just like, anti-harassment training and all kinds of other messages. What I heard from Mr. Dworetsky is he's concerned that some may not be as forthcoming with records because it may put the department in a bad light.
Can I speak to that?
Yeah, please do.
Okay, great. First of all, when I interviewed for the position, one of the questions and concerns I had was, were the staff compliant and aware of Sunshine, because I didn't want to spend my time, browbeating and harassing and haranguing and hurting the cats. And in fact, every year at one of our all-staff monthly all-staff meetings, once a year, we have all-staff meetings once or twice a week that Shireen, our department head, speaks at and hosts. once a year, I do a training for the entire staff on Sunshine, a PowerPoint presentation, which I'd be happy to forward you, that highlights the importance of Sunshine, what it means, and in the deadlines. And, we don't give them the whole,
With some specific examples at HSH as opposed to generic stuff.
Yes.
Good.
And so we emphasize that the importance of being responsive to Sunshine requests. And I would say, nobody, not one of our 200 and whatever it is now, 80 staff, hasn't heard or read about or seen a critical article about the department. It kind of goes with the territory when you work for the Department of Homelessness and Supportive Housing. So these are not people who are faint of heart, and they're perfectly aware of the fact that this is a challenging and difficult issue that we deal with every day. So, if anything, actually, the staff are overly, sometimes, they're sort of overly generous, and they send records that are not responsive because they are afraid they might be. So I've actually found we have the opposite problem. It's not that people don't give us records, that they give us too many records, or they give us records that don't actually speak to the request. I get dozens of emails from people that are quite fastidious saying, it seems like this is responsive, but I'm not sure. What do you think? Or can I jump on a call and discuss this with you? It has not at all been my experience that our staff are sitting on records or hiding things or refusing to respond to things. And that just is not an accurate portrait.
Okay. All right. I feel like I've sort of heard enough for tonight. Member Hill, are you good?
Yeah, I'll just close with a couple of things. I was just still, I was looking, trying to find, I'm still trying to just make sure that all things considered, if the request needed to, I'm trying to remember the exact words, Mr. Hamlin, that you used, like if the request needed to have, that you need to consult with other interested parties in the departments, because of the voluminous nature of information that was requested, were we compliant in communicating a 10-day that you needed to do that, and then thereby granting you the extra days? So I'm not sure I ever got an answer to that. So that's one thing that I'm still trying to figure out.
I'm sorry. I'm not quite clear what the question is. I'm sorry.
I think member, if I might, I think member Hill was commenting that where the department needed to invoke an extension because it needed to search for documents in remote locations, it was a voluminous request, or there was a need to consult with another department or perform redaction reviews. Did the department in all cases communicate that to the requester?
Yes.
And member Hill is saying that he did not hear enough to answer that question tonight. And frankly, I didn't hear that. I didn't hear a good answer to that either. I didn't hear that. I heard that we do it. I heard that we don't necessarily do it all the time, consistently, every time, and that we could do better. I didn't hear that we do a terrible job. I didn't hear that we do the best job ever. There was somewhere in between, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
No, nothing personal taken. We're just trying to understand whether the rules were adhered to or not.
So, okay. So where? Hold on one second.
Sure.
We'll give you another opportunity in a moment.
Okay.
So where I am is, I think we've heard it enough tonight. I would suggest that we forward this to the task force. I think we could either forward this without a recommendation or with a recommendation to find a timeliness violation. Understanding all of what we just said, and with that, I would encourage HSH in a further response to the full task force when this is heard to address the questions on pages 202 and 203 of the packet in a little more specificity. I did see the department's response on page 216 to 218, but I agree that it is a bit of a, it's not completely cursory, but that it could be more detailed in explaining in this instance, not just whether records were produced and requests closed, but perhaps, and you can look at other examples of other departments that we've seen recently, TTX, et cetera, the number of hours spent, the back and forth, the narrowing, that there are ways that you can demonstrate that you either did or didn't reasonably do what the department is expected to do under the circumstances. And that'll be up to the full task force to determine. Does that?
Yes. And again, I'll just say that, like, all due respect, I know probably 95% of the time you got it right. But we're just here trying to figure out if that 5% of the time, just needs to be called out. Yeah, so I mean, I would certainly be, if we feel like that by their own admission, that they were, running late on some of the responses, then to me, it would seem appropriate to make a recommendation to that effect.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I could be there. I could not be there. I don't know. And
if you're not, then
we
can also
we'll see in a second.
Yeah.
Right. In any event, I don't think that there was any real ill intent here. If anything, I think that we're kind of having a bit of a dialogue on ways to make things better and be more responsive, because there will be more stories about homelessness in San Francisco. I mean, unless you solved it this afternoon while we're sitting here, and I kind of doubt that, I suspect that there will be more money spent, more people concerned, and more stories written.
I remember people, I'll just say, this is the first time I've had an opportunity to sit on in a committee together. I actually really appreciate the fact that you're taking the time to try to help people understand on both sides of it. So, it's not something that, we have a lot of cases that we have to hear and understand why there needs to be expediency, but I actually really appreciate your, the color that you're adding and the information that you're providing to the folks that are here. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so let's move on to the next phase here. So we had discussion, respondent and complainant presents clarification and rebuttals. So I think we start with the respondent first. So Mr. Hamilton, this is your 3 minutes of wrap-up, rebuttal, and anything further you want to add.
Okay. I don't have a whole lot more to add. I will say, to your point about doing things better, we've progressed a lot in the last couple of years. We had a series of kind of temporary, different rotating kind of staff handling Sunshine. And when I came in, things were on spreadsheets, and there was, kind of documents and had been handed off to different people and filed in different locations. And we've really done a lot of work, not just in terms of, the responses to current requests, but to creating a system. We have, we use Asana, which is kind of a dashboard that allows us to track all the requests and assign them with numbers. We keep track of which documents we're waiting from for each employee. And we're using a Next Request in the background to manage these requests, and we'll be migrating to that being our public site. Sometime, I don't know exactly when, but sometime, I imagine sometime in the next 3 to 6 months. So, that actually will make it much more easier to track these requests and to track responses from staff. I don't know if you have used Next Request, either of you as members, or if you have views about it, but we are excited about, continuing to improve the process that we use to track these requests. So again, I don't have a whole lot more to add. I do think that it's important to underscore the fact that, it is not the responsibility of Sunshine staff in any department to know the intricacies of the media timelines and hearings and budget releases and so forth of the city, and that's why it's important to collaborate with media relations staff so that they can assist reporters in meeting their deadlines. We work with dozens of reporters on an annual basis, from the Wall Street Journal, from the New York Times, from outlets all over the country. We have a very good working relationship with the press, and we're very good at managing deadlines so that they get what they need by the time they're writing a story. And I would, again, encourage Mr. Duretsky to collaborate with our media relations staff to that effect. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And Mr. Dworsky.
Thank you. I'll also be brief. First, I wanted to respond to Member Hill's question about invoking the time period for additional response in the case of voluminous things. I can report, and it will be reflected in the documents that you have, that in none of the public records requests that I've made have the department ever asked for that additional 10-day extension or invoked it in a timely manner. So that leaves me just to this sort of an overall wrap up is I think that the Sunshine Ordinance changes the picture of what people are supposed to do in responding to members of the public and to the press. And it does create a set of deadlines. It doesn't create a world in which people can just decide what they think is reasonable. If in the papers that I filed in our rejoinder, I point out that the idea is not to give departments control and determination over what's relevant or when they can produce it. And while Mr. Hamilton is, undoubtedly has a lot of work to do, again, this is a huge department on very important things, and they are governed by not a sense of reasonableness. They're governed by what the ordinance says about when they have to produce. And they don't do that for me. The average production in my cases is over 2 months. And that's also in the materials. And that just isn't, it isn't right. And, I think that it would be a mistake to just rely on a generic statement that we're all doing, everything we can. That's not what the ordinance requires. And without somebody to enforce it, the public will suffer. Thank you very much for your time.
Great, thanks. And at the risk of being obvious, I think you're both right. So, this could go either way, I think, on our interpretation of the law and the facts. I think we had a reasonable dialogue about how things can be better. I think, points were made on both sides. So I will, thank you. And that ends my comment. And so I will ask Member Hill, what's your preference in terms of either recommending finding a violation or with no recommendation? That's where I think we're down to at this point.
For sure. I mean, we definitely have jurisdiction for sure. So I think there's no question there. I've been hovering around, 6725B, obviously, because it specifically calls this out. And I'm just trying to get to, true or false. I'm used to, I've had a couple of records requests with HSH when I'm surprised to hear this actually did not happen because I've had records requests where it has, within 10 days, I would get the notice that they needed more time. And they took that time and they got me everything that I needed in a time, in that fashion, so, but I haven't heard from Mr. Hamilton that did happen. And we also heard from the petitioner, from the complainant that it did not, so I'm hovering around 6725B, at the very least.
Am I allowed to speak to that?
Hold on for 1 second.
Just a moment.
I think actually it's not 67.25 because that would be for an IDR. And I don't think any of these were fashioned as an IDR. I think it's 21.
Oh, sorry. You're right. I'm looking at
21 ABC or AB. Right.
So I'm sorry. So yeah, 21.
It really comes down to did they reasonably comply with a record request, or in this case with a series of records requests, I mean, it would be easier if it were a single request for a single document. Did they get it? Didn't they?
That's why,
Right. But
yeah.
because it's a series of requests over time that required I mean, it's almost like the complaint needed to be triaged and sent to the complaint triage center. Never mind. And it's tolerable. So, and anyway, if your sense, I'll leave it to you. So if you want to recommend that we find a violation at this point, I'm happy to support that. If you want to recommend that we not find a violation, or that we don't have enough information and that we've asked, and we can ask the parties to, drill down a little more for the further hearing at the full task force as to why on this, not in general, but on this specific complaint with this series of requests, whether the department reasonably complied or not, and that we don't have enough information tonight. We can do that. That's fine.
So I apologize. You're right. I'm now looking at 6721B. That as soon as possible, within 10 days following receipt of request, they shall comply with that request. And if there believes that the information requested is not public, that the custodian shall justify withholding any record demonstrating in writing. That I actually will. I think I am going to lean towards making that recommendation, mostly just out of, I feel like that unless there's any further comment as to why this isn't the case, because I actually heard an admission earlier that, and that's okay. Let's just all like, it's okay. It's okay. Like, if things happen, but if we need to draw it out, then we'll draw it out. I think by not making a recommendation, it's like we covered a lot. There was a lot of things that was heard. I certainly wouldn't want to have the full committee or the full board have to rehash that. So I feel like that, me personally, I have enough information to make that motion.
Okay, that's fine. So I will second, and let me restate so that we're clear.
Yes.
To Cheryl, this is a motion to recommend that the full task force find jurisdiction and find a violation of section 67.21B for failure to respond to a request for public records in a timely and or complete manner. And that's with the information that we have tonight. And if the complainant wants to provide further evidence in support of their position, that's great. And if the respondent has something further and more detailed, perhaps along the lines of pages 202 and 203, that would refute that, I think, we're certainly both open to being persuaded that there may not be a violation here. And I think the full task force hasn't heard this, and, could go either way. So I don't think this is a slam dunk one way or the other. So, feed us a little more, both sides at the full task force is what I would suggest. Does that?
Absolutely. This is a recommendation based off of information that we've gathered today. But that's why we have the opportunity to hear this in front of the full board.
Okay. And thank you to both sides. Let's open this up for public comment and then take a vote. Is there any public comment?
Can I just go ahead and restate slightly? I believe the motion would be to find that the task force has jurisdiction. The requested records are public, and to refer the matter to the SOTF for hearing with recommendations as you stated.
Yes, that. And let's open it up for public comment.
Yes, if you would like to make public comment on this matter, you can raise your hand at this time. If you're on the phone, you can press *3. Otherwise, use the application to raise your hand. If you're in the room, you can approach the podium. I will go ahead and unmute our one public commenter.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay. 6721 case says that you have to take either the CPRA or the Sunshine Ordinance, which is stronger. In this case, CPRA 7922.535 is stronger about this case. So one of the things it says is on number B, it says, no notice shall specify a date that would result in an extension for more than 14 days. So you have to give a notice of what date within. And this also has where the unusual circumstances are located in C. And down there is voluminous. And you in the 10 days or so, you're supposed to figure out whether it's a voluminous amount of separate and distinct records that are demanded in a single request. It's not, you guess. Also, if you're going to do a rolling basis, which is in the IDR, you can't like clump. You know, you have to, it says this section is intended to prohibit the withholding of public records that are responsive to the record request until a potential responsive document has been reviewed or collected. You have to produce it by the end of the same day. They are reviewed and collected. That's 725T. I guess that's a lot at you. Take care. Have a good night. Bye.
And that was Mr. Sullivan? Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you for your comment. Appreciate it. Is there any further public comment? Victor?
Just see if there's any other hands raised. I do not see additional public commenters.
All right, seeing no further public comment is closed on item 5. There's a motion. Cheryl, a roll call, please.
Member Hill?
Aye.
Member Hill, aye. Chair Pilpel?
Aye.
Chair Pilpel, aye. Moved by Member Hill, seconded by Chair Pilpel. Find that there is jurisdiction in the records are public and to find a violation of 6721B for not responding to a records request in a complete and timely manner.
Great. Motion passed. That'll be heard by the full task force at some point in the future. And again, I would encourage both parties to provide some more information if you deem that helpful. And thank you for engaging in the dialogue.
Very much.
Thanks, both of you. Mr.
Chairman, this is Victor.
Yeah.
Yes, I just want to let you know we did receive an email from Mr. Minette Shaw saying that he is he's having a flare-up and he would like to postpone this matter.
Okay.
We received this email at 3:39 today.
Okay. Thank you. I'm not sure how we describe flare-up in the minutes, but you know what? We'll figure it out. Victor, can you, sorry, Victor number 2, can you approach? Do you, and this is Victor Lim on behalf of DPH, correct?
Yes, yes, sir.
Got it. Okay. Do you have any objection to continuing the matter based on the flare-up that we now have learned?
Not at all. I hope that Mr. Minette Shaw gets well very soon.
Okay. Because, you know, the health department could, never mind.
We care about people's holy health, yes.
Yeah, that's good. Okay. So give me a second to make a note here. Okay, so what I heard was no objection from the respondent to a continuance based on non-appearance by the complainant due to the flare-up. We have an email that'll be in the file. This matter has not been heard before, so I don't know if it would still be heard here or might be heard by a different committee. Cheryl, is that our normal practice, that it could be here or it could be sent elsewhere?
What do you mean?
That if we continue
There is no standard on this.
Got it.
No,
Okay.
it'll stay with the committee. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, does it?
It stays with the committee.
Okay, because when we talked about the 2 Sullivan complaints, they might be heard elsewhere. Victor? Sorry, Victor number 1.
There's no policy, since it has not yet been heard, we can move it around.
Got it.
Committees if needed.
Got it.
Yeah.
So would it be appropriate to entertain a motion to continue the matter to a future hearing whenever, wherever
I would just
that will be?
simplify it and just say continue to the call of the chair.
Good.
Yeah.
And we can
We
deal
can-
with it.
We can do that. Okay. Member Hill, did you want to, do that?
Yes. So I'll make the motion to
Continue the matter to the call of the chair.
file number 26063 to continue the matter to the call of the chair. Thank you.
Yes, if there's anybody who'd like to make public comment on the motion to continue, you can raise your hand at this time by pressing *3 on the telephone, or otherwise using the application to raise your hand. I'll give you a few moments.
And by the way, I will second the motion.
I see no indications for public comment.
What am I, chopped liver here? Okay, so there being no public comment, let me just make a quick observation to Victor Lim. Since you sat through the last thing, you were paying attention, and I think much of what we discussed may apply in the instant case and certainly applies more broadly to DPH. I believe that there were some responses from DPH that just had a generic DPH records officer kind of thing. And
Would you like me to speak on that? Or?
no, not right now, but in the future, if you can take the sense of the discussion back to your folks.
Yes.
And all of that. DPH is also not a small department with a large number of requests, facilities and programs and services all over the place, and not a simple place to deal with. So I think,
Right.
and frankly, it's even bigger than HSH. So all of what we said times 20 or so applies to DPH.
Yes, for the record, we have 7,700 plus employees.
Yes.
And more than 10 divisions. We are using NextRequest.
Yeah.
And so for our purposes, depending on which division the request is submitted to.
We don't need to do all this right
Okay,
now.
thank you.
But you get it, and
Yes, I get it.
we'll hear more about DPH in the
Yes,
future.
Yes,
What do they say? DPH ain't going anywhere.
that's right.
Right. It may be across the street. You may move at some point, but as an entity, it's not going anywhere.
And I've been handling this for 15 years since I was a board aide.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So more on DPH in the future. We have a motion and a second. Thank you. Thank you for being here. We know where to find you. You've got a backup person. Cheryl's
we
got
do.
all that.
Yes.
Cheryl knows where to find you.
Yes. Yes.
Good.
We have a clerk. We have several other folks backing us up. Three
Got it.
others.
No more Eileen Shields.
The
Use the mic, Cheryl.
DPH.sunshine mailbox is checked by multiple people.
Excellent. That's what we want.
Yes.
That-
Multiple access.
Good.
Contingency plan.
Okay. No more Eileen Shields, but still, you've got other people.
Right. Right.
She was great. Okay. So motion and a second. There was no public comment.
I'm going to take a vote.
Yes, let's do that.
Member Hill?
Aye.
Member Hill, aye. Chair Pilpel?
Aye.
Chair Pilpel, aye. Move to continue the matter to the call of the chair.
Great. Thank you. And thank you, Victor, for spending some time with
anytime.
us.
Thank you.
We will see you again.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Very good. Okay. Thank you, both Victors. Now we're down to only one Victor, but it's okay. All right. Let's call item 6. What?
This is the
But wait, this just in?
email from Patrick Monette Shaw that we got yesterday.
Oh, got it. This was yesterday at 3:39, not today. Okay. Okay. I did not have this.
You can keep that. I think I have.
Maybe I did have this. Okay. Too much stuff. All right. Thank you.
You can keep that, yeah.
Got it. Okay. And you'll put it in the file. All right. Thank you very much. Let's, as we stretch for a moment, let's call item 6. And I believe hold on. I believe Richard was here from HV Safe, and I'm not sure if we had somebody from the police department. So let's call it and hear it.
All right. Item number 6, file number 22129, complaint filed by HV Safe against the police department for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 6725 by failing to respond to an immediate disclosure request for public records in a timely and or complete manner. On January 24, 2023, the Education Outreach and Training Committee continued the matter to the call of the chair and requested that an update be sent to the committee by February 3rd, 2023, and that update should be concluded in the packet.
Got it. Okay, so with that, let's see who's here. Do we still have Richard? And I'm sorry, I did not get your last name.
If you're a party of this matter, if you can raise your hand, it would be appreciated. Okay, I have unmuted 2 callers who have indicated they are.
Yes, my name is Richard Johnson. I'm with HV Safe.
Got it. Okay, excellent. And
this is Lieutenant Toomey with the San Francisco Police Department.
great. Thank you. Okay, are we good to go?
Yeah.
Okay. I have no disclosures or recusals on this matter. I've looked at some of the material briefly, so this is a follow-up. Hold on a second. Cheryl or Victor, can you remind me, this was a complaint that was first heard at EOT in January and has not gone to the full task force and come back. This is still in committee to gather more information.
Per the order of the January 24 meeting.
Yep.
This was to be remain in this committee until
we have gathered sufficient stuff to. Okay. All right. So that's where we're at procedurally. Member Hill, is there anything you want to add? Okay. So why don't we hear for 5 minutes each from both sides as to where we're at. And again, if you can point us to specific pages in the packet, that would be fabu. Let's hear from the complainant, Mr. Johnson.
Are you ready to begin, sir? Hello?
Actually, hello?
Yes, I'm right here. How can I help you, sir? Victor, did we lose him?
Hello?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, so I guess you didn't lose me. I would like to defer to the other person who's present for HV Safe to speak on this.
Great, that's fine. And who is that person?
Mish, do you want to speak?
Somebody talk to me.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm the other party from HV Safe.
Can you tell us who you are for a second?
My name is Mitch. I work with Richard. I think what he wants me to kind of fill
Hold on
in.
a second. I'm sorry.
Hold on.
Could you give your full name, please, and title?
Mitch Reckers.
Do we
spell that, please?
M-I-C-H, last name Reckers, R-E-C-K-E-R-S.
Thank you.
Okay.
Excellent.
So,
thanks.
Thank you. There's been a little confusion on our part. One of the things we want to address is that on a number of documents, SF Safe is being used where HV Safe needs to be listed. So there has been a little bit of confusion on the document end of things. Our understanding why we're here today is that in addition to the complaint goes back to where we were requesting a copy of a recording from SF Safe for a public safety meeting that they hosted with SFPD. That's the origins of this complaint. It's kind of moved along into other directions because what we have here is we have the SFPD that I guess is, working with SF Safe. And there's been some questions whether SF Safe falls under the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force because it's a nonprofit with grants, et cetera, et cetera. I think Mr. Toomey could probably fill us in a little bit more there. But we've come to this meeting trying to really understand. We're kind of new at this, so there's been some nuances along the way where things stand. And, I guess ultimately we'd still like to know if we can get our hands on the copy of this recording, but it feels like, that's what we're here to sort out. So that's the long short of it.
Okay. Thank you. And I guess we weren't timing, but that was fine. We will have some questions and clarifications. So I appreciate that intro.
Okay.
Richard, did you want to chime in anything else, or are you good with that for the moment?
Yes, actually, I would like to chime in a little bit more on this. Basically, as I said, what we're looking for is a recording that SF Safe, and it's San Francisco Safe, which is a nonprofit associated with the police department. They were actually helping to host during the COVID era Zoom meetings, and they were, from our understanding, the person that would hold the recording of the meeting, and that's what we're actually asking for. And the police have stated that they seem to think that this document is not able to be presented to us, and that's where our beef is.
Okay, believe me, we will get to that very shortly. Okay, so I think we're good for the complainant side.
I didn't hear that person's name.
That was Richard Johnson.
Richard Johnson.
Right? Mr. Johnson? Richard Johnson?
Yeah. Yes.
All right. I think we're good. And if somebody's got noise in the background, so if you can mute on your side when you're not speaking, that would be great. Lieutenant Toomey, let's hear what the police department has on this right now.
Sure. Good evening. As we first admitted in our initial response to the task force, we do take full responsibility for the timely manner of our response to HV Safe. So the first concern of being not in a timely manner, we do apologize for that oversight. With regards to this specific request for this recording of this community meeting, as we mentioned at the last meeting of the committee, we are not in possession of the recording. We were never in possession of the recording. We do not regularly use the recordings in the normal course and scope of our business. SF Safe is the organization that produced the recording. We have asked SF Safe for that recording ourselves so that if we could get our hands on it, we would be able to then provide it to HV Safe. But we were advised by SF Safe that recording no longer exists. So we are not in possession of it. To follow up on a request that the committee had made with regards to, is SF Safe under the jurisdiction of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force? I did some research and was able to provide to Cheryl and the task force the documents that we have that are the contractual obligations between SF Safe and the San Francisco Police Department. In my layman's review of those documents, I could not see a clause or understanding that would have made SF Safe under the purview of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force. But again, that is, I don't really feel as comfortable making the full determination of that based on the fact that I was able to provide those documents, review them as a layperson. But it is my understanding and belief that the task force and the ordinance does not apply to SF Safe as an organization. Meaning, I don't believe that a member of the public could make a request of SF Safe based on the authority or the force of the ordinance as it is in the city charter. With that, again, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I do have a few questions. Member Hill, shall I?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I'm hoping that we do not go down the 12L route tonight of the detailed relationship between the police department and SF Safe and what functions they provide and exactly how that all works. We certainly can. I'm not particularly interested in that tonight. I would like to focus on the specific request from HV Safe, the complainant here, which was looking for the Zoom recording of the October 11th, 2022 Northern Station Community Safety Meeting posted by SF Safe. And further, any or all communications of any form between your agency's official, between the police and SF Safe regarding meeting attendee registration requirements from January 1st, 2020 to present. That was the italicized stuff in various documents, including page 275 and page 276 in the police department's response, acknowledging an untimely response, in part because the request went to an email address that is not regularly monitored. So I'm just taking that as, at face value, that the police were, in this case, were not trying to delay production, but when it was pointed out to them, they responded quickly and did a diligent search and believe that they have no responsive records, I guess. Anyway, that's how I'm reading it. So first to Richard and Mish, can I refer to you as such?
Yes.
Okay. So does that fairly state and what you were looking for, which was both that specific Zoom recording from that date of that specific meeting and more broadly, all communications between the police and SF Safe regarding meeting attendee registration requirements for a 2-year period or 3-year period, excuse me. Is that fair?
Yes, because as an attendee of the Northern Station meetings, I regularly brought up that question of what was the need to pre-register for Zoom meetings instead of, in fact, during the era of COVID, basically groups would just send the link and then you would click on the link and you'd be into the meeting. Each time with these meetings, you had to register with the meeting, and in asking that question, that's when it was, and that's why it's essential to see the tape. And we've actually asked for correspondence between Kyra Worthington who heads the SF Safe, and between Captain Jackson of the discussion of the necessity via emails, the necessity for members to register each time and what was done with that registration.
Okay. And I'll get to some of that in a moment. Can I just clarify? And Lieutenant Toomey, I'm not sure how familiar you are with Northern Station and how it operates and the differences between the district stations. I believe you've been in legal for a while, which is fine. But, you know, the police department is, what do they say, an enigma wrapped in a riddle. Anyway, the police department's an interesting place. First, back to Richard and Mitch, can you clarify if this is the monthly station public meeting or if this is the station advisory board meeting? Because I believe there are 2 meetings a month. You know, last week I was at Terraville Station, which was the public meeting, not the advisory board meeting. And this was in person and there was a sign-in list. So I get where you may be going with this, maybe, but I wanted to just clarify which of those 2 meetings, or is this a third thing that is different at Northern, which is entirely possible. Can you help me with that? That was to Richard and Mitch.
As for someone who has worked with Northern since the early 90s, and it was for the monthly community meeting, which is open to the community at large, whereas the Citizen Advisory Board is more so a group of people that is selected by each station's captain to hold a monthly meeting. And you're correct about sign-in sheets. I was a person, and when we ran the meetings, unlike what SF Safe does, it was more so under the police community relations forums, where it actually had citizens that were elected, president, the secretary. And so we would take the sign-in sheets to use to build a mailing list. For me, I have no issue with sign-in sheets, but where my issue is in this meeting, it was stated that these sign-in sheets were being turned over to the federal government. So that's why it's essential for us to get a copy of this meeting, and for me to have SF Safe say they don't have a copy of this recording because they are the custodians for the community benefit district cameras that are run throughout the city, and they're the ones that give permission to see the tape or not. So I kind of find it hard to believe that SF Safe doesn't have the capability of recording these Zoom meetings. And that's
All right. Well, now you got a lot of stuff out there. So let's try to focus a bit here. I'm not sure that we need to get into the whole world of surveillance cameras right now. I understand what I'm hearing about concerns on releasing sign-in lists or video links or whatnot to the federal government, which might compromise any number of things, et cetera. I get that. That's cool. That's legit. I don't yet understand where SF Safe comes in as being the intermediary here, unless they were setting up and hosting these meetings, which seems odd to me. If it's in fact the district station regular monthly public meeting, whether it was held in person or on Zoom, it seems to me like that's a police department thing, and the sign-in list or the how do you get into it or whatever, whether it's in person or online, is more a police department thing. So I guess I'm still trying to understand how SF Safe is even in the loop on this. If they are, great, and please tell me, and we'll run that down. But
maybe I can. Again, this is Lieutenant Toomey. Maybe I can help shed some light on that. I did have a conversation with Commander Jackson. He was captain of Northern Station at the time. As he explained it to me, that during COVID, in that wonderfully weird time that we were living in, that SF Safe was in fact the facilitator of the monthly community meetings that during a quote unquote normal time would have happened at the community room at the station, or maybe in a community gathering somewhere within the district. So that during COVID, SF Safe did take the mantle of facilitating and running the community meeting. So the sign-in sheets that were referenced, the Google Doc that was referenced, and this apparent video that was recorded were actually all facilitated by SF Safe. And it was explained to me by the commander that he allowed them to facilitate and run the meeting, and that he actually never, the station never received the sign-in sheets or the copy of the recording of the meeting, that they just participated in the meeting as one of the participants.
Okay. Sorry to go back to the grant agreement and the arrangement between the police and SF Safe, but then can you just tell me in your understanding, however you came to your understanding, Lieutenant Toomey, is it your sense that that was either in scope of the relationship between the police and SF Safe, or became part of the scope and somebody asked somebody to do something and they said, we can do it, and so it was done? I mean, do you suspect that there's something more formal that says, until further notice, will you please facilitate these meetings on our behalf, and we'll include those in your hours and yada yada yada? Do you think it got that formal, or did it just happen?
I don't believe that it got as, I don't believe it was as formal as editing or adding a side letter to the agreements and the contract that we entered into with SF Safe.
Okay.
But I don't think I could speak as an authority as to how the decision to have SF Safe facilitate the community meeting came about.
But fair enough to say that it happened somehow. Okay.
I wholeheartedly believe, based on the conversations that I had with Commander Jackson, that he and SF Safe came into an agreement where SF Safe was going to help facilitate the community meetings based on the need for it to be a telecommute style community meeting.
And at a minimum, that happened at Northern, may have happened in the same way or in a different way at the other stations, but that's beyond the scope of what we're dealing with tonight.
Correct. And I couldn't speak to, because I haven't spoke to any of the other commanding officers as to how they conducted their community meetings.
Okay, that's cool.
And if I can recall, though, that there was discussions within the organization that you were encouraged to be, for lack of a better term, creative in how you could provide a community meeting based on the fact that we were in the middle of a pandemic. Zoom really wasn't something that everybody's super familiar with. And so I do remember that some community meetings were completely scrapped altogether. And I think this was an attempt to try to start providing an alternative during the once we realized that the pandemic was going to be extended for a long period of time.
And it's kind of like something is better than nothing. On the other hand, the terms and conditions of the something, to the extent that they're different from what you would have expected otherwise, can be either good or problematic or somewhere in between. So
certainly, and I can't speak to, I apologize for interrupting. I do want to speak to the fact that with regards to document turnover to the federal government, I spoke to Commander Jackson about that. He does not recall or remember ever hearing or having a conversation where he was advised that that was going to happen. And it's not certainly not something that the San Francisco Police Department as an organization intended to do on its own or grant permission to. I don't know if permission is the right word, but that certainly. Yeah, that was certainly not something that was within our desire or something that we were looking forward to doing or plan on doing.
Okay. And that would be consistent with our sanctuary city status and ordinances and joint terrorism task force and drugs and this and all of the various agreements and arrangements that we have with information sharing or lack thereof.
Correct.
Okay. Do you believe, notwithstanding all that, that some video or list or sign in or whatever was shared with some branch of the federal government in connection with any of this?
I have absolutely no reason to believe that any information was provided to the United States government from that with regards to that community meeting. I have no inclination to believe that that happened.
Or that would happen on a regular basis in connection with any public meeting held at a police station. That's not what we do on a regular basis.
There is no standard order, policy, procedure, or desire to share that information with the federal government.
Got it. Okay. That is very good to know. Thank you. in the event that a community meeting like the one that I went to last week, or one that might happen in the next 6 months, occurs in person at a police station, to the extent that records are generated related to that event by a city staff person, like somebody who works for PD, or for that matter, NOCEIA or OEWD community ambassador, or somebody else that's within a deputy city attorney, whoever might appear at that meeting. If they took contemporaneous notes during the meeting saying, somebody asked about car break-ins, what are we doing about that? Whatever, right? Those records would be made available if they're subject to disclosure, redacted if appropriate, et cetera, if someone asked for that. Same thing with a sign-in list.
If it was maintained by a city employee, it would absolutely fall within the Sunshine Ordinance. Yes.
Okay. So in the department of making helpful suggestions, I believe last week when I was at that community meeting, it just said community meeting sign-in sheet, name, address, email, something like that.
Right.
Can you get out to the various people that are relevant that those things might say, providing your information is voluntary, anyone may attend, and something about disclosure of personal identifiable, PII? Here?
I think some type of waiver / claim would be I think that's a wonderful and smart idea to place on those sign-ins. I can absolutely have that information disseminated to the commanding officers that,
the world of captains and lieutenants. Yeah. Okay.
Our enigma.
Yes. I mean, I would say, just thinking top of my head, that to the extent that someone signs in, their name may well be disclosable, but their address and email contact information is probably not. And there may be other good reasons why their name might not be subject to disclosure. I'd have to think about that a little more. But at a minimum, if you're signing in to a meeting, kind of with the put me on the mailing list if I'm not already on the mailing list, so I get the captain's monthly newsletter by email, that's a good and legit government purpose. The providing that personal name and contact information to a third party in response to a records request would be possibly problematic. Check?
I completely understand. I think that if we continue down this line of thinking, though, and I think it's important, if it was facilitated by the police department.
Yep.
Pardon me 1 second. Straight ahead, too. The caveat to this one was the difficulty is this the police department that actually requested and had that sign-in sheet, or was it SF Safe that did it, and then we were at the community meeting? And I understand it's a semantics issue, but we don't have that sign-in sheet. We didn't request that sign-in sheet.
I understood.
If we did have it, we did have it, I absolutely would provide it to the requesters. Okay. and in fact, to the point of where I did actually ask for it from SF Safe, the video specifically, and was advised they don't have it, because I would love to give it to them, because I think that if we could give it to them, I would, and I want to.
Okay.
And I hope that I've made it clear. This is not a case of us trying to hold back a piece of documentation.
Understood.
This is a case of we don't have it, and maybe horse on us for not asking for it.
All right.
Like as a term.
One thing at a time. I was just I was just talking about going forward so that we try to, fix things going forward. And, I expect there will be a nicer sign-in list at future station meetings throughout town, thanks to this little chit chat. That's good.
I absolutely believe that we learn from these and we get better from it.
Absolutely. And that's cool. So let me, sorry for this digression, but let me go back to Richard and Mish. If I am not interested in why you're asking for this stuff, and I'm not asking you why, I'm asking what. So the specific stuff that you were looking for here was the actual Zoom recording and communications about attendee registration requirements. If the police if they do not have the Zoom recording, and if they don't have any written, or email, whatever communications about attendee registration requirements, do you accept at face value that they have no responsive records? And is there anything else that you can think of right now that might get you whatever you're looking for whatever reason you're looking for it? Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, it definitely makes sense to me.
Okay.
To me, it would be as simple, and I pose this to Lieutenant Toomey, who I have great respect for because I've worked with him out of Northern, is that it would be just simple for Kyra just to state, to answer the question, do they submit, we need the recording for us to hear her say that. She could simply do that by making a statement of she misspoke at the meeting, or what she spoke at the meeting was correct because it was heard by other people in the room, because this was brought up like in two or three meetings, this discussion about the sign-in list and where the sign-in list was going was brought up numerous times by me to both Captain Jackson and Kyra.
Okay. All right. So let me follow up on that. This back and forth about the sign-in list. Hey, I didn't realize sign-in lists were such a big thing. That's cool. I'm with you. Did that back and forth occur at that specific meeting on October 11th, 2022? Is that your belief?
Yes.
And that's why you wanted to get the video to hear exactly what the back and forth was?
Yes.
Got it. Okay, cool. And if, all right. It's all starting to make a little more sense. So Lieutenant Toomey, presuming that police ran to ground with both records within the department, records that the department has access to, and records that SF Safe has or has access to the extent that there was a meeting on Zoom, that meeting either was not recorded or that recording was not preserved, that recording no longer exists, or does not exist. Maybe it did exist, maybe it didn't, but it does not currently exist. Is that your understanding?
That is my understanding.
Okay, cool. I'm sorry, Richard and Mitch, apparently it does not exist. So to Lieutenant Toomey, in the absence of such a recording, is it possible for, are you familiar with, I guess it's Kyra? Do you know her personally?
I've spoken to her once
Okay.
in regards to this matter.
Okay. So you know her a little bit, and she's somewhat familiar with the matter. Could you, it's not a record that currently exists. I get that. Could you nevertheless have a little email back and forth with her, or have a dialogue with her by phone or in person, and follow up with an email in which she somehow memorializes her recollection of what happened in the back and forth at that meeting, which was, less than a year ago, about how attendee registration and sign-in works for those meetings, at least at Northern, that SF Safe was facilitating during COVID. Is that essentially is that possible that you could engage in that and provide that to the complainants?
My concern with that would be, and of course we could always ask and try, but it would seem like we are using the police department to compel an individual to make statements and provide information. My concern might be that as a member of law enforcement, the Kyra would be left with the question of, am I being asked to do this, or am I being ordered to do this by a member of law enforcement? It's just it's a bit of a sticky situation. I only bring it up as a matter of risk management, not unworthiness by me to want to do it.
No, I get that. All right, let me try a different spin on it. Richard and Mitch, would you, if Lieutenant Toomey could facilitate a discussion, would you be interested in an in-person meeting, a phone call, a video chat, whatever, with Kyra from SF Safe during which time you could take your own notes and have a discussion to recount and memorialize what happened at that meeting? Would that do the trick for you?
For me, it would, and we definitely have records to Kyra of where we have requested of her for this information personally. And also, can you unmute Mish? She's been texting me that she's not been able to speak.
Ask and ye shall receive. Victor?
Thank you. I just want to add, I find this conversation very constructive, first of all, and I just kind of want to
apologize for that.
No. This is rather refreshing, if I may say. I kind of want to hearken it back to how we got here. At the end of the day, this meeting occurred, like you said, about a year ago. We were almost 2 years into COVID. Hayes Valley Safe here, we've been advocates for just getting neighbors and businesses the community information. And this all started merely because what we wanted was the very thing that we still want, is that we wanted those Zoom links to be accessible by all. We reached out to Kyra and her aides, assistants, and we were constantly asking, can we just have you give us this link so we can post it to our membership, to our website, to get more people to these community meetings. This is for the community. So I feel like, all this chatter about how to improve the sign-in or whatever, I mean, we'd love nothing more than to, be going back to in-person meetings. The sign-in sheet has never been the problem. It was because of these remote meetings, we wanted to highlight that, all they needed to do was give us this link. And instead, they looped everybody around to register. And it was unbeknownst to us that Kyra said in a meeting that was on full recording, we all saw it, that the reason why she couldn't give us this link was because the information is being turned over to the Fed. So that's how we got here. If you want to move forward, we want to make these meetings accessible to all. We don't want people to come to these meetings in fear that any information is being turned over to the Feds. We were shocked. I mean, we were, that's why, we had to point this out. So we're all for getting everybody to the meeting, making it easy on everybody. We just want to be able to ensure that this is a safe zone for people to, attend a meeting, whether it's in-house or remote.
Okay, no, that's totally cool. All right, so a couple of points on that. So Lieutenant Toomey, could you attempt to facilitate such a discussion between Richard and Mish and Kyra that would be, positive and constructive?
I can do my best.
Okay.
I absolutely can attempt. I will try to get all the parties involved to the table to have a discussion.
Okay.
I get no promises, as they say.
Yeah, good faith effort is good. The only question I would have and encourage somebody to ask is, on what basis did Kyra say or believe that her concern about providing the link was that some information was going to get disclosed to some federal agency? I'm intrigued by that notion and where that comes from and whether that happened. I believe Lieutenant Toomey in saying that was never the intent of the police department. I think it's entirely possible that no such disclosure occurred. I would be discouraged to hear that any such disclosure did here, but I'm fascinated by what would motivate Kyra to believe that it was occurring or might occur. That's kind of interesting to me. I don't know why, it just is.
It is to us too.
There you go. Okay.
And actually, I would have to say, in these meetings, it was actually asked of her, was it because it was a requirement for the funding for the grant money that she gets? Because I've worked in public safety, and to me, it was a simple. She made the statement, and it's interesting. After she made the statement, she backtracked and did pretty much everything. I feel everything within her power to withhold that. The factual. Was that a fact, or was that just something that she spouted out? And it wasn't a fact. And that's basically the essence and the reason of why we're pushing forward for this recording, because then we can hear in her voice of what she said. And to me, it's like it seems like she should know what her procedures are. And that's where I actually asked her in that meeting if that requirement was because of the funding that she was getting from the federal government, and she seemed to think no. And just, she came out with the statement. Like I said, as someone who's been attending these meetings since the early 90s, it's to me, and knows the benefit of a sign-in list, because we used to hand mail stuff to people. That's how we created our mailing list. So and people knew that they were going to get this, but they always knew it was never the intent of ours to use that information to give it to another body that could be used against those people that attended that meeting.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I get that.
And one last side note, we would love the SFPD to take over these meetings as they used to. I mean, there's apprehension as long as SF Safe is in the mix. So, I mean, I'd love to hear from Lieutenant Toomey that, this isn't going to be a problem, and that SFPD will be running the meetings like they did pre-COVID. I mean, that would be our ultimate goal. I mean, all of this might even be moot if that was the case. So kind of curious to hear about the current conditions of these meetings, if they're still in control of SF Safe, or have they, resumed back in control of the SFPD?
Well, I'll just say, based on my experience last week at Terraville, the meeting was run by either the captain, acting captain, lieutenant, whoever it was there, who would definitely be. There was a second PD person there from Terraville. There was someone from headquarters that apparently coordinates certain operations. There was a deputy city attorney and code enforcement. There was someone who had an OC EIA community ambassador jacket on, but I believe may have been an OEWD community ambassador, because that all makes sense, and some other police community ambassador with a blue jacket. So anyway, but they sort of explained what their various different capacities were, and it is probably also useful, and this is again to Lieutenant Toomey, if there's some more consistency and clarity at those meetings of who's who, what's what, who does what, because there's a lot of confusion in the community about, the difference between the city attorney and the district attorney and the various ambassadors and the CBDs, and who's got which data and how do you report this, and 311 and 911, all of that, blah, blah, blah. And there could be a more consistent script throughout, like, standard content that we do every month, regardless of who's there, and then stuff that's specific to, the message of the week and the month, car break-ins, homicides, whatever the thing is that's going on citywide or in specific districts. I don't think, I hope none of us are in radical disagreement about any of that.
No, in another message for Lieutenant Tomey, Hayes Valley Safe, A3 Safe, we would like nothing more than to partner with the SFPD to ensure productive, fruitful meetings, whatever we can do to help that, because that's all that this was ever all about. So just kind of trying to bring it back home. Yeah.
Excellent. So, and although there was a discussion last week about the PD org chart, and I think either the commander or the captain from community engagement was temporarily reassigned to the Mid-City Division, yada, yada, all of that. Perhaps somebody Lieutenant Toomey, if you could loop in somebody from community engagement to this discussion, because this really is about meaningful community engagement specific to Northern, but more broadly to all of the district stations. Does that work?
Completely. We certainly will learn from this. I think that a lot of the concerns that were brought up by the complainant are being mitigated by the fact that they are coming back into in-person. They are now being run more by the in-house staff from the captain and in conjunction with our community engagement division with acting commander Aaron Para. So I think a lot of the concerns that have been voiced tonight have kind of been already handled based on the fact that we've left COVID and we're coming back to a thought of normalcy.
Okay. I think I'm good. Member Hill, you're good?
Yeah, I just had a couple quick questions.
Sure. Yeah, please.
So this would be to the respondents. Are the community meetings typically are they now both in person and virtual, or is this all still virtual?
I certainly know that they're in person. The virtual or hybrid model, I do not know if that is being utilized.
And I'm just specifically referring to Northern Station. So are the Northern Station community meetings?
Actually, Northern are now.
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
Can we mute whoever's making the noise for a second?
Someone's traveling and making a lot of noise.
Okay. Basically, the Northern meetings currently are community meetings held in person at the community room, and they are now being run by the captain. And at this time, we have a new captain, Captain Sawyer, which I haven't been to the meeting since he assumed the role of captain.
Okay. So are these live? So in-person meetings, are they streamed at all?
The last couple, at first they were being a mix of hybrid. The last couple that I attended, they have not been being streamed. And if they were being streamed, that would be as what was the duty throughout the COVID era. That would be the responsibility of SF Safe to facilitate that ability to host a Zoom meeting or a remote meeting.
Okay, thank you. Are they typically recorded?
Generally, they are.
They are recorded.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they're streamed and recorded, or are they just recorded?
They were live and recording, so.
Which you can do on Zoom.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. No, I'm just trying to understand like the practice here, if I may. So I just want to make sure I understand this. So so you're saying that they're not streamed, but they are recorded today?
What do you mean by streaming? I think we need some clarity.
I'm sorry. Are folks able to attend this live via their PC?
Yes, they're able to attend the meeting from their computer. They're not in the room, but they're hearing and seeing the speakers.
Okay, so thank you. So they're in person, but they're also online. They're also and they're online both live, and there's also a recording of each one of these meetings. Is that did I get all of those three correct?
When
yes.
when
they did the format of where they were encouraging both in person and also to have people participate via a Zoom, it was always noted, or it would be noted in the Zoom meeting that the meeting was being recorded.
Okay, so that was my next question. So when it was being broadcast over the internet live, there was a message saying that it was recorded.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, hang on just a second. So, and I just want to make sure I do want to understand the relationship, because when I read the Northern Station's website, it says, in partnership with SFPD, SAFE is the host of regularly coordinated community meetings that are co-hosted alongside district captains for every police district and neighborhood in the city, all open to the public. Is this an SFPD meeting or is this an SF SAFE meeting?
It's billed through the captain's letter as being a SFPD meeting, community meeting, the monthly meeting. For Northern, it's always the second Tuesday of the month.
So the short answer is PD.
It's an
Yes.
SFPD meeting.
Yeah, but
Yes.
they have a host, which is SF SAFE.
Understood. I understood. So this is an SFPD meeting. Am I hearing from? I'm sorry. I just want to make sure I'm hearing from SFPD.
The last 15 minutes of conversation has all been coming from the complainant HC SAFE. None of the information that you've just received is from SFPD.
Okay. May I ask the same questions of SFPD?
Sure.
So question first.
Go ahead.
The first question is, are your meetings both held in person and online?
At this time, I do not know. I can't speak to what commanding officers are doing today with their community meetings. I know that they are hosting in-person ones. I do not know if they are providing the same opportunity to view it online as it's going on at the district station.
In your opinion, do you believe that these are SFPD meetings or SF SAFE meetings?
I believe that they're community meetings. We ask to have a meeting with members of the community, and we provide. I don't think that we can say. We try to use a community format that allows for anybody to actually come and speak at it, and that's why SF SAFE is kind of used as an administrator, so it doesn't look like we're propagandizing as a police department. This is a community meeting. We want members of the community to come and provide information. We want to answer their questions, and we want to provide information of our own.
Sure. Right. So, okay, so here's, please bear with me on this.
Sure.
This is for SFPD. I'm a member of a leadership team of a neighborhood organization. And in my role in that leadership with the neighborhood organization, we have monthly meetings where we invite different people, emergency management, police department, HSH attends those meetings. I am not bound. Those meetings are open to the public, but they're not. They're not. I don't have to provide any sort of public record of the agenda or the minutes or the video. Even if I took the video, I don't have to provide a recording to anybody that asks for it, because I'm not a member of I'm not a member of the city. I've invited people to the city to attend it, but I'm not. So to me, this is a very important distinction.
Sure, I understand. I think one of the maybe, and again, as a layperson not understanding the completeness of these meetings, there is no decision making that is done at these meetings. So there is no, it truly is just a time for everybody to come together and have conversations. So there is no decision making. There's no public policy that is built, voted on, or decided upon at the meeting. So I think that that's an important factor that we should probably consider with regards to public meeting versus. So,
and that should be so stated.
Right, that should be so stated,
that
yes.
Purpose is
correct.
Information. We're not, yeah.
Correct, yeah. So I have one question about the list. Is it an attendee list, or is it a request to sign up to get marketing emails from SF Safe?
I don't know. I've never seen the SF Safe sign-in sheet. I don't know what the verbiage on it is. Again,
this may be something for Richard and Mish to follow up with Kyra. If to the extent that they're doing a sign-in list, great. Who's getting it, and what are they using it for?
And what does it state that its purpose is on the top of it? Like, does it say that this is the attendee list for this particular meeting at this date and time at this location? Or is it just say sign up here to receive email notifications?
And again, that's why I suggested more consistency, clarity going forward, et cetera. So there's some things for people to noodle through here.
Well, and I think my final statement, let's see, let me just make sure I've gone through everything here. I think it's important that everyone here understand, that. So the reason why I was asking about in person versus virtual is because, yes, you may be right that like in a meeting like this, there may not be any sort of policy, or it might not be like an official, hearing where official action is taken. And I look to Mr. Pilpel and others to help me understand this. But to me, there's a difference between a community meeting held by a nonprofit, that's held virtually, where people are being invited to attend, and an event that is happening on the grounds of in an official city building. Because I think that also makes a difference as well. So if this meeting was occurring at a police station in an open setting, where the expectation was it was going to be broadcast live and also recorded, see, I think that's a compelling that is very compelling for that archive to be retained. If this meeting was completely online, and it was hosted by a nonprofit organization where they invited other members, then
a different thing.
That's a very, very different thing. And so that's what I'm trying to get to the bottom of. Thank you. And if either side has any comments that they want to provide really quickly to that fact, I would, or to those comments, I would be welcome to that quickly.
Yeah. You're on a golden track in my book. You're spot on.
Oh, there you go.
All right. Thank you.
So we'll open this up for public comment in a moment, but I think where I am, perhaps where we are, is a request to Lieutenant Toomey to try to facilitate a conversation between Richard and Mish and Kyra, and perhaps the new captain at Northern while we're at it, or if the new captain isn't available, one of the lieutenants, somebody that's in charge at Northern.
Correct.
About the practices in general for these meetings citywide, the specifics about Northern, the purpose of sign-in lists, something about expectations for participants, what's the purpose of the meeting, something about standardizing the scripts. Just understanding what you're getting into, that we want people to attend gatherings to learn about what's going on in the community, to have the opportunity to ask questions, to interact directly with police staff in a non-confrontational, non-threat, et cetera.
Feel safe.
But to feel safe, and not that by showing up that your sign-in information is going to be broadcast to everyone who doesn't need to know it.
Absolutely.
So all of that. So Lieutenant Toomey, I think you were committing to try to make that happen with nothing more than a commitment to literally try to make that happen. You can't guarantee that it's going to happen or that SF Safe is going to be willing, but you're going to try to make it happen, and you're a guy who tries to make things happen, and we appreciate that.
Thank you, and yes.
And Richard and Mitch, you're willing to try to do this with them in good faith and get to the bottom of the questions and concerns that we expressed and that you've expressed and that are frankly entirely reasonable.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And by the way, if you can solve homelessness or income inequality while you're at it.
We're trying. We're not trying.
All right. One thing at a time. Okay. So there's that. In terms of this item, once again, it doesn't seem like this needs to go to the full task force right now. It may not need to go there at all. You might be so inclined to withdraw the complaint once you're satisfied, but I'm pretty sure that you're not yet satisfied. And having this meeting or discussion happen would go a long way to getting you there. Is that a fair assessment?
It is on my part.
Great.
Internally optimistic.
Fabu. All right. So if we were to continue this matter again in committee and ask for a further report from both sides at a future meeting, does that work? Continue this
Absolutely.
to the chair?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So
Yeah. Why don't I move this one?
Sounds great.
Does that work? Okay.
I will second that motion.
And that's to continue the item to the call of the chair.
Okay, on the motion to continue the matter to the call of the chair, if there's anybody who would like to make public comment, you can raise your hand at this time by using the application to raise your hand. I'm seeing no indications for public comment.
Okay, seeing none, there being no further discussion, let's take a roll call on that.
Chair Pilpil?
Aye.
Chair Pilpil, aye. Member Hill?
Aye.
Moved by Chair Pilpil, seconded by Member Hill to continue the matter to the call of the chair.
Great. That is passed. Thank you, Lieutenant Toomey, for trying to make that happen. And you know how to contact Richard and Mish to make this work?
I'll utilize the email address that the initial public records request was made through, and the correspondence that we've been using. If that's appropriate to the respondents, please. If it's not, please let me know.
Okay.
No, that's fine. That's
team
fine.
at HV Safe, that'll work.
Yes.
Rockin', which is checked by more than one person, like the DPH email. Sounds good. All right. Look forward to hearing back from all of you at some point in the future. Good luck and thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Great. As we're stretching again, let me remind the world that items 7 and 8, file numbers 22115 and 22116, complaints filed by Mark Sullivan against Bruce Wolf, were removed from the agenda earlier and discussed under item 1. We put off items 2 and 3 and still have items 9 and 10 to discuss. I would like to take a break in a bit for a moment because I've got some things I got to think about. Perhaps we could take item 3 next and see if there is any public comment now, and we might even check later if anyone else joins us and open that up again. So maybe we can take item 3 next and then take a break for a few minutes and come back and do a final stretch.
Sounds good.
Okay. Without objection, let's do that. So let's call item 3 next. Cheryl, thanks.
Item number 3, public comment. Members of the public may address the Education, Outreach, and Training Committee on matters that are within the committee's jurisdiction but not on today's agenda.
Is there any?
Would you like to
There's
take public
no
comment
one in the room, Victor.
at this time by using the application.
Great.
I do not see any indications for public comment at this time.
Okay. Are there actually people online listening?
There are 2 people with us at this time. Would you like me to unmute them just to see what they are here to talk on?
Yes, sure.
I am unable to unmute them. I don't have control.
Well, I wish you did.
I'm looking at my screen here, Victor, and it says 0 attendees.
Oh, they may have hung up on me and it hasn't refreshed.
Maybe it was the 2 from the previous.
Probably so.
Okay. All right. So if we've got nobody, then
It's just us.
it's just us. That's fine. Nevertheless, I would still like to take a break. I want to do a couple minutes on the minutes and stretch, and if we can recess for hopefully about 5 minutes.
Sounds great.
Ish. Thank you. Mics are off. We're back in session at 7:35. Victor, are you with us?
Victor, you with us?
I'll keep working on this while you find Victor. Victor, Victor, Victor.
He's on mute.
He did that himself.
Yeah, like he stepped away and put himself on mute.
Yeah, he must have.
All right. Let me know when you find Victor.
Yeah, well.
Can we call him?
Are you waiting for me?
Can we call him?
Yeah, we're trying to find Victor.
Yeah, he's not responding. Sorry.
Can we
Can
just
you-
call him?
Can you?
Cell?
We've been sitting here watching you.
Oh, all right. Well, this has been fun for none of us.
Still recording. Just officially reconvene and take roll.
Got it. All right. It is now 7:43. We are reconvening late and taking roll.
Chair Pilpel,
Present.
Chair Pilpel present, Member Hill,
Present.
Member Hill present. We have a quorum.
Great. Victor, do we have any other members of the public listening, watching?
Just checking. Nobody else is with us.
All right. But they're also not against us, so that's good. All right. So let's go back to item 2. And Cheryl, if you can read item 2. Thanks.
Item number 2, approval of the minutes from the Education Outreach and Training Committee, May 23, 2023 regular meeting.
Great. Thank you. I have a number of what I would deem non-substantive edits. Unless you really want to hear it, I won't roll through them. There were a couple of spelling issues. Mawuli's last name, I think, is Tugbenyo. And I think his title is the Director of Policy at DHR, things like that. It appears that I was not present at this meeting as a member of the public, but I am trying to streamline and reduce the length of minutes where possible and roll things into one sentence. And where we have a video or audio of a meeting, I am of the belief that minutes should be minimal and reflect action minutes, and where necessary to add a little color and flavor to do that. But in general, I'm with shorter is better.
Yep.
And as you see in my long verbose statements, shorter is never mind. So with that understanding, and I will get the actual edits to Cheryl promptly, I would move that we approve these minutes with those edits as referenced.
I'll second that motion.
All right. Moved and seconded to approve the EOT committee minutes from May 23rd, 2023 with edits. Is there any public comment? There is no one in the room, Victor.
There's nobody online with us either.
All right. Seeing no public comment is closed. Cheryl, a roll call, please.
Chair Pilpel,
Yes.
Chair Pilpel, aye. Member Hill,
Aye.
Member Hill, aye. Moved by Chair Pilpel, seconded by Member Hill to approve the May 23, 2023 minutes with suggested edits.
Great. Thank you. That takes us to item 9.
Okay. Item number 9, hearing Education Outreach and Training Committee work plan.
Great. So I just wanted to have a few minutes here, assuming that we have not much or nothing to add in item 10. Since Member Hill and I have not spent any time together in person until today, and I just wanted to share a few thoughts, and we're going to distill this down to like 1 or 2 sentences for the minutes on EOT and what we can and should be doing. And I wanted to articulate a little bit and then have some dialogue, and possibly with Cheryl and Victor as well. So it is my view in general that the task force has plenty to do, that the Compliance and Amendments Committee is engaged in the big rewrite project, which is no small effort and not going to be a 5-minute endeavor by any stretch, that complaint is properly burdened with the huge backlog of cases, reducing that close to zero and managing ongoing caseload, and that EOT and that rules meets as needed on call, and that EOT therefore pitches in to hear complaints as directed, but also is kind of like the tiny little section that does some proactive work to, I don't know, educate, do outreach, and maybe promote training that ultimately gets to compliance with the ordinance by various parties around town, whether they're city people or public people in whatever capacity. And as hopefully we demonstrated tonight, to make things less confrontational and engage in some problem solving. In my experience, follow-up to cases that are heard at the task force have tended, not always, but have tended to go in the following way: that follow-up on records-related things tended to go to compliance for follow-up, and issues related to meetings, and I guess 12L, if we had a follow-up on a 12L thing, would tend to go to EOT, because that's just sort of how the universe split. Doesn't mean that that's required. I'm not aware that there's anything specific in the bylaws or complaint procedures that argue for that, but it sort of just happened that way. Okay. And over the years, when I formally chaired EOT, we held those kind of follow-up hearings, but we also held proactive hearings with community folks, with department representatives, and took on topics like the index of records, websites, complaint procedures, this question of who's the backup person, and how do you do a diligent search, and all kinds of how standards for meetings, and maybe talking about minutes and record keeping, that there are a lot of kind of high level topics that you can break down and ask either large, medium, and small departments to talk about what their experience is, what practical obstacles they've found, what sort of advice and direction, guidance is helpful from the task force in sorting through some of those things, what things have come up in the last year or two that they're wrestling with, or where we've noticed on the task force side that one department does it this way and another department does something similar but in a completely different way, and that one is arguably better than the other, and how can we get them to share best practices, things like that. Talking to department heads, their immediate assistants, board and commission secretaries that have like a different role, public records people, records management folks, which are not necessarily the same folks as those who respond to requests, dealing with the complexities of an agency like PUC that's got stuff from here up to Hetch Hetchy, and police that's got stuff all over the place, to something very small like the Entertainment Commission or the Civil Service Commission that's got like 5 staff people in a relatively small department with a relatively defined and discrete set of records. So it runs the gamut. And I just think that where we have some space and time here, we should use that judiciously to, try to get at some of those big things. And maybe we would also, or maybe it's compliance amendments, but that somebody monitors changes in state law, whether it's Brown Act or CPRA, ballot measures that may have some impact, court cases, et cetera. That there's, surveillance technology, privacy generally, that there's a lot of stuff that we could be much more proactive about, but because we've been sort of complaint and backlog driven, that it's been 99% that and very little of this other stuff. And I just think that where we can do some of that stuff, where the task force can carve out a little time, great, but it's more likely this committee would be the lead for that more proactive stuff. I have all kinds of lists and ideas at home. I didn't bring all that tonight. I'm happy to share that either here or at the full task force or some blend. And it may be that we come to a point of saying, okay, well, for city technology questions in relationship to DT or the COIT, the Committee on Information Technology, that our, again, primary point person will be X and our backup is blah. As relates to the city attorney, our primary person is da-da and whatever. As relates to Angela and her staff, whatever. That there are a variety of like assignments or tasks that we could cut up. Who's monitoring the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force's own website and the binder and things like that to be sure that we've got the most recent, most current stuff, some of which we could make a request to Cheryl or Victor to update or fix, but a lot of that really needs to originate with us. It's not like they're getting in the way, but we need to say, we would like our website to look like this and to have these, Maybe we decide that the list of who to contact at the departments should be public. Maybe we say, okay, each department should have an email that's a primary point of contact, right? DPH Sunshine Request, PUC Sunshine, whatever the heck, right? And we want that list. We're going to maintain that list and we're going to blow it up and put it on our website and encourage people, to send stuff there. They can certainly fire requests off to anybody that they feel like at any time, day or night, but they will be much more likely to get a response in a timely and complete basis if they send it to DPH Sunshine Request, if it's wait for it, DPH Sunshine Request, right? But nowhere are we currently saying that. And we could.
Yeah.
So it's those kinds of things that keep me going at night.
Yeah.
And that's where I want to go with some of this. I don't believe that the reputation of the task force is particularly great right now among city department folks. I think it is slightly better among members of the public, but I think it's also kind of mixed and people aren't happy that stuff takes forever to get through, et cetera. So I think we have a lot of work to do on the task force side to improve our reputation in a variety of ways. Part of it, for example, was taking cases first and putting this stuff later on. I'm encouraging Chair Yankee to think about that. We may do that and we'll see, right? But things aren't going to get better until and unless we make them better. And we're here for a short period of time to try to make things better. Sure. And I've seen the players change, but none of this is new. None of it. Yep. So that's where I'm going with this. And I wanted to hear your thoughts and dialogue a little bit because I've talked way too much tonight.
asked to be on the Education Outreach and Training Committee because I was fully expecting that we would do education, outreach, and training to the community, to the staff of the city, to our records, our records clerks and our records our record keepers. Yeah, like I completely agree with everything that you said. No, I've held myself back from volunteering for other things in the community because I'm hoping that because I'm committed to this and to it and I so I'm completely behind your general thought. I would love the opportunity to personally get more involved in particularly the things that you were talking about towards the end around helping people make sense of our website. We attempted that with the IT group, and I mean, I think where we ended was the reason why it ended was or that we didn't get much traction on it was because we just didn't have physical control over what was going on our website. Like we don't. That's my understanding. Like we can't make the change. Like we physically couldn't make the changes. Or without a lot of difficulty. Right. Yeah.
Like moderate changes, but we can't make right. And we can.
So I'm all in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. And I think in a collaborative way, the letter that you worked on some months back that came out of here about the Smith versus San Jose case that the task force then approved at the September meeting, that I did some more work on, that I'm getting to Chair Yankee, that's going to get out. It's still in the works, but I think where we can take an issue, boil it down to a letter, if a letter is the appropriate vehicle, that's a great way to make some things move.
Sure.
Not going to solve everything,
no,
but where we...
But we hear that all the time, right? People come into this meeting and they're like, well, it wasn't really a city employee that, did that. And we all know that like, that doesn't matter necessarily. So yeah, I'm with you. Like I would love to see us, I think part of the reason why we don't have a great reputation is because we, every arm of government has to help people understand what value that they bring. And that means that you have to do a little branding for yourself, and so to that fact, like we've been absent of that largely, and no one's fault. It's largely because I see this backlog that's just been like, kind of insurmountable, but it seems like we're making some headway on that, whether it be website, social media, whatever, there's a lot of ways that we can reach the community, and you can actually reach the people who work here also through those outreach mechanisms that we're just not taking advantage of. So, yeah, let's do it.
Agreed. And I think just as compliance and amendments is looking at a rewrite of the ordinance in part because of changes in time and law and technology, I think that there are things that we can encourage folks to do that don't require a change in law, right? So,
best practice, like you said.
Right. So 30 years ago, email was not particularly common. You wanted to get records, you had to go to a police station, right? You wanted to reach somebody, you had to call them, right? You couldn't email in the middle of the night. You couldn't text during a meeting. You couldn't, put up on your social media site, blah, blah, blah. All right. So that's all changed.
Yeah.
And I suspect that 5 or 10 or 20 years from now, technology will have evolved further, and who knows what it'll be, right? Look, did you think you'd see self-driving cars wandering around your neighborhood with nobody in it? Wacky. Okay. Anyway, keeping on topic,
I agree.
Where we can encourage departments, they don't have to have a section in the ordinance that says, at a minimum, you shall have on your website your org chart, your budget, your contact list, your set of programs, an annual report, blah, blah, blah. We can just say, we would like you to have those common elements somewhere on your website in a way that's intuitive and not buried. And to the extent that you've already done that, great. And if you haven't, please do so. And here are some good examples of other city websites, big, small, and medium departments that have done that. Go try that and come back to us in 6 months.
We'll probably have to maybe do a little of leading by example on that, though. So if it's in the purview of us of EOT to reconsider the current situation of our website and use that as an opportunity to promote some of these best practices I would be very much interested in picking that ball back up.
Okay. So noted.
Yeah. We did get a head start on that. We did get a start on that, and I'm sure that I still have the notes that we took on that. So
feel free to pull them up.
Okay.
Sometime.
All right.
I'm not making a records request for them, but I'm just saying.
But I think again, like I can't even make sense of our website.
Yeah.
So I think we should start there.
That's good. And again, in the old
days, this is not your fault.
All right.
This is not your fault. This is about how it's organized, like how the menus, and that kind of stuff, right? It's like
we're going to give Cheryl and Victor a chance in a moment, and we're not going to take.
It's not. Yeah, no, it has nothing to do with any. No, it has nothing to do with the service that our clerks are providing us. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with like the years and years of just piling on, and sort of disorganization.
Exactly. There was stuff that was just added where someone said, "Let's put that notice up there," and that was 10 or 15 years ago, and it's still there.
Right.
In general,
and it's the lack of information that's on the site as well. Right. The lack of guidance. It has nothing to do with it.
I am generally.
Don't give me that look, Cheryl.
I am generally not in favor of taking stuff off unless it has been superseded or is really no longer relevant. So I'm not interested in like getting rid of old case determinations. But if we had a news release from 2004, 2008 that's still on there, I'm pretty sure that's not so newsy anymore. And we should probably take that off and instead have the current complaint procedures, which may or may not be on there. Things like that.
Right.
And similarly for other departments, if they've got agendas and minutes from 1995 on there, that's fine. But the stuff that's current for this week and next week should actually be like up to date. And if they get in some new piece of correspondence or another staff report, they need to add that. And we need to explain both verbally and to some extent in writing how we think meetings should run, because it's no longer obvious to people, I think, whether it's an in-person meeting, an online meeting, or a hybrid meeting, how you do a meeting. And meetings don't just happen, or if they do, they happen kind of in a happenstance sort of way.
Sure.
Good meetings, I think, are planned in advance, during, and after, and we want to encourage that, and that it be somewhat more consistent. So if you show up at a police commission meeting, your expectations and the reality shouldn't be radically different from the Environment Commission or the Planning Commission. Yes, they do different things, but in terms of where to find an agenda, what's on the agenda, when there will be public comment, how things are explained, it shouldn't be that radically different.
Right.
And right now it is all over the place. And that doesn't exactly promote confidence in government writ large.
Agreed.
So we got some work to do.
Yeah.
But I did hear you say you're interested in taking on the task force website.
Absolutely.
As a specific thing.
Absolutely.
So that's great.
I mean, here's one example. You go to the website and it says, to hear audio, you'll need Microsoft Silverlight.
Mm-hmm. Does that still exist?
No.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, that's been deprecated for so long, and you don't even actually need it.
Okay.
And I'm looking at the site and I see that that's not a site that's actually ours. It's a site that's hosted and embedded by another company. And I just so happen to know because I used to work at that company. So it's that kind of stuff. It's like if I want to see like an audio archive of something, I go here, and if I want to see the minutes, and I go here, and if I want to see, like, it doesn't have to be that way. And so I think that like we can just be, we can set it up in such a way, honestly, hopefully to make it easier for our clerks as well.
Hold on. We will. I'll give it a moment, but 1 second. I wanted to finish this dialogue.
Yeah.
In the old days, space was at a premium, and that's why, dates were truncated to 2 characters and files were zipped and, server space was expensive and there was no cloud and blah, blah, blah. Right now, space is relatively available and relatively cheap.
That's true.
So if we wanted to say, for example, that not only should bodies keep an audio and video recording of their meetings, but they should post an audio or video recording of their meetings if they have them, and archive them. And if they have them for the last 20 years, find them, digitize them, and put them up there, right? Even if that takes them 6 months or a year, and even if that's a budget ask,
right,
then so be it.
Yes.
If that's helpful and that's doable, right?
Sure.
That is probably easier than getting the police department to figure out where all of their Fakakta records are all across town, right?
Yeah.
Which is not a 5-second, 5-cent project.
Right. Why can I get access to contracts that are not,
Right.
that they receive a lot of requests about. People don't probably realize it's like if you keep getting requests, put it on the website.
That's right.
Those kinds of things. I'm with you.
That's a perfect example. I don't think everything needs to be posted at all times, period. But I think, and there was some language that we buried in, I think, 29-6 or 7, that where departments get multiple requests for a thing, that means that more than one person's interested, and you should put it on the website. So if you get, 10 requests for this contract, that means that somebody cares, and you should post it somewhere. And it doesn't have to be a next request. It should be more intuitive that it's an HSH contract or whatever. Put it on the HSH site. This is, interesting. People are interested. Here it is.
Chair Pipple, I'm 100% behind you on this. Beside you, next to you, whatever, partnered with you on this. And I will make. I will revive our website recommendations, and
we will discuss them further before we go anywhere with it. But thank you for taking that on. Cheryl and Victor, your thoughts before we close the item?
I was just going to comment that I don't know if you're aware of this, but if you want an audio recording of one of our meetings, it's posted like within 48 hours of the meeting. I think that's the rule. And I give it to our IT people.
Okay.
And then the agenda, the corresponding agenda is also posted right next to that audio.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah. So the idea that minutes could be posted on the same platform is a good idea. And I think what's something we should consider.
And I know it can.
Right.
Huh?
I know it can. Like that's the whole.
Yeah. Well,
that's
I'm
the
not
whole point.
And if we can do it, then why can't every department do it? And all boards and commissions and possibly other policy bodies. If they have the technical capability to do it, they should. And, I don't know that we have one of those recording devices, the tiny little walking thing.
Cassette?
Yeah. Or whatever. There's an electronic version of that that's not an actual cassette, but it's like a digital recording. There are those things, right? You can take that, it's like the size of a lighter, and walk into a room and record an entire meeting for hours and hours, right?
Sure.
And then you can take that, transfer it, and upload it, bada boom, bada bing. So all these people who say, oh, we don't have the tape recorders and it's all, but come on, if they're like, well, then we'd have to spend $100 to get one or two of them. Yeah, good. So spend $100 and get one or two of them, share it, have a nice day. So it's like, these are problems we can solve. All right. Anyway, I think, yeah. So Cheryl, did you have anything?
No,
further?
I was just,
Okay.
I have no problem with rearranging the web page as we have it. I mean, we have documents that are, where we have a section where all our ODs are listed.
Mhm.
And they're listed according to calendar year, not
Mhm.
calendar month.
Right.
Chair Wolf, when he was chair, wanted ODs listed when they were heard, which to me makes no sense because
In any event, we can put them
can
where we,
change it.
right.
We can change that.
And if we want to indicate dates or complainant respondent names, however we want to package that, we can do that.
Well, we do that already.
Okay.
We do client number.
Chair Philippo, I just
Yep.
want to put in that we still have to put everything through our IT department.
Yep.
And, there's certain things that we will not do just as a policy matter.
Okay.
So I wouldn't make any assumptions immediately.
Understood. But the point is that it's not like the website or any number of these other things are locked in stone. It's just that we've done what we've done because that's how we've done it. And if we want to re-examine it and say, can we do it differently, we can re-examine it and people can weigh in on whether we can do it differently.
Yeah, I mean, here's a simple question. When will we be invited to participate in the new website?
Well, that's a whole nother discussion. And I mean,
That's a different discussion. I mean,
yeah, but that's actually,
Is it?
it is. That's a good topic, for example, for this committee to invite Sid Harrell and Jane Gong from the digital services team that, is now, I think, still under the city administrator, but is now residing over at DT to the extent that anybody comes into the office, a whole nother discussion, and have them talk about what the new website is and the architecture and things that are good about it. I'm interested in hearing if there's anything good about it because my feeling is and what our input is on what could be done differently there, both in terms of look and style and consistency and architecture and whatever policy is around. Anyway, that's a good discussion to have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Broadly. All right. Anyway, Cheryl, anything further?
No, I was just going to explain to you what the setup is for ODs. I mean, it does have all the information.
It's an example. That's fine. When we get to that page, we will look at what's on there.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's fine. Good.
That's it.
Victor, anything else to share?
Just of concern, not concern, but something that we are working on is the clerk of the board is working on finding a new contractor for our database, and SOTF is included as part of that. And we're hoping that it will be web enabled so that they can do their own searches and we don't have to do it for them.
That's the Legistar replacement system, the legislative track, whatever it's being called, the replacement for Legistar.
Yes, and we're hoping that we are including SOTF as part of that, just to make our life easier in terms of tracking documents, files, and whatnot.
Yeah, good, because really cases here are not radically different from legislation at the board. It's just tracking a case and associating documents and yada, yada, blah, blah, blah. And we don't have it currently as a thing. We do it all manually. And that takes gobs of time and all of that. So yes, a better world is hopefully coming soon. All right, Victor, we're good?
Yes.
Okay.
No public commenters.
Got it. Okay. That's all I wanted on this right now. More in the future with whoever's in charge here. Moving on, item 10.
Item number 10, announcements, comments, questions, and future agenda items by members of the Education, Outreach, and Training Committee.
Got it. The only thing I have is that I was asked to chair tonight. I don't expect to do this in the future unless I'm asked. Depending on what happens with the leadership of the task force, we may shuffle the deck again. Who knows? I'm assuming that our next meeting, Cheryl, do you have a calendar nearby? Or does somebody?
Be in November. October will be compliance.
Right.
November will be EOT, and Chris will be back to chair that committee.
Right. So that would normally fall on, I think, the
Fourth Tuesday, it's the Tuesday before Thanksgiving.
right.
21st, November 21st.
I think
That
that's
sound
what
right?
it is.
I'm sorry, the 4th is
Fourth
the 28th
Tuesday.
of November, Tuesday, the 28th.
So it's actually after Thanksgiving.
Yeah, because the
This
first Tuesday of the month is the 7th.
Got it. And the fourth Thursday,
It's the third Tuesday.
The third Tuesday is the
21st.
21st.
First complaints, okay.
and that would make Thanksgiving the 23rd and the committee meeting the 28th. Right?
The EOT meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So unless it gets changed, it would likely be Tuesday, November 28th.
Okay.
I
I actually already have it on my schedule.
There you go.
Yeah.
I am also in favor of starting earlier, which is why we pushed it back to 4:30.
Okay.
I think we could even get the room at 3:30 or 4. I don't think earlier. I don't think 3:30 is great right this second. But Member Hill,
It has to do with people in their work schedules making an appearance.
understood. But if we take people out of order, if somebody's here, right? If somebody's here, you take them out of order, rock and roll. So Member Hill, if you could be available as early as 4, if Chair Hyland is available, or however that all works,
Yes.
I think sooner is better.
I'm on a 6 to 3 work schedule on Tuesday. So
There you go.
yep. There you go.
Okay. Because this, like, starting at 6 and being done at midnight, I think is for the birds.
Yeah, not into it.
Starting at 4 and getting done sooner is better. So we will leave that to others to figure out timing.
Okay.
That's all I had. Cheryl or Victor?
I don't have anything to
Okay.
propose.
Victor?
Nope.
Okay. And still no public comment?
Nobody's online.
Okay.
I'll make a
Then-
quick comment. Thank you for stepping in and as the acting chair. I think you did an amazing job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm just a guy. Don't worry about me. All right. So for this, no action taken, and same thing on item 9. We'll note for the minutes, no actions. I think that's good. Is there anything further tonight? Seeing none, then we are adjourned at 8:19. Thank you all very much. Sorry it took a little longer, but we got it done.
Okay.